My biggest fear ever is sitting down to do one of these, and it just doesn't work. But it seems like we're good. Okay, good. Because can you imagine doing like a 3-hour podcast, and then you get back, and it's just all gone, at least one angle of it.
Especially if you like got into some really amazing topics, and it was like one of a kind.
Yeah.
And you were excited about it.
That's what happened with the Human podcast.
That's so disappointing.
It was so disappointing, but it's a learning experience. Like, this is a one-of-a-kind setup. I don't know anybody who's podcasting like this, but I know that this is critical, like the fucking microphone.
And what about the glasses? Those are critical.
The glasses are critical now, too. We got the stands, a universal stand I can find anywhere.
It's an invention that I could take credit for, I think.
Absolutely. Me and Jared, right before this, we're trying to golf. So unfortunately, I flew my clubs all the way out here, and it's nothing but rain today.
Yeah, if we want to golf in a lake, today would have been a good day.
I'm always down to golf in the lake.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, back to like this, it's like I feel like you've done interviews before where you have like the wireless mic on, right?
Yeah.
It feels more like an interview, right?
Right.
With these, it's like more like a podcast. Even though it's the same thing, it's like a different type of style.
This feels more right for sure.
Right. Well, we were just talking, and I was telling you how like the interview we did on this couch when Nala was like a little smaller and kept interrupting is at 50,000 views. So like in this podcast, I don't really want to get, like everybody knows your story at this time. You know, you really started getting known when you got the second quickest growing store, second to Kylie Jenner. Does that ever get old for you? Like people saying that? Because it's been like 3 years now.
Yeah, because it really doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It's just I really got lucky on an ad campaign that scaled like crazy and I stuck to it.
On the drive home to Florida, right?
Yeah.
Or was it to California? No, from California to Florida.
Yeah, when we were moving from California to Florida, it's when I started outsourcing the media buying and the support. And it allowed the driving allowed my brain to like get more free and do less. So I had more creative energy.
Yeah.
And we just started testing things. And during that drive, it scaled from like 2K a day to like 50K in like 5 days.
We talked about it last time. How weird it is that my first successful Shopify store was on the drive back from California to St. Louis.
Yeah.
And yours was similar. So what have you been up to? Because I know that right now you have had working your ass off in Zen Drop.
Yep. Yeah, really, as of lately, it's been Zen Drop and taking care of my dogs and golfing.
Yep.
That's my life.
And you golf every single day.
I try to, yeah, as long as it's not raining.
Yeah.
I live in this neighborhood because it's easy to go play golf. And I think it's really, at least for me, it's important to have a hobby, or else I don't know what to do with myself, or else I'll get into a bad habit, or I'll it's good. People are all about like work all the time. But I think there's other things that you need to have in your life to balance. And for me, golf is one of those things that like, no matter how much I play it, like I'm going to keep getting better at it my whole life. Yeah. So I, sticking with it.
And do you ever wear like an Apple Watch when you golf?
I don't. But I have looked up how many calories I burn.
My gosh, it's so good for you. I did one where I was 18 with the riding cart. It was like 1,200 calories.
Yeah, and I'll sometimes play 2 rounds a day.
Yeah.
Oftentimes 27 holes. So I'm definitely burning some calories.
What's the most holes you've ever played in a day?
54.
54? That's 3 games?
Yeah.
Was that just all day, just golf?
We were on a trip to Laurel Valley, which is like this. It was Arnold Palmer's home country club, and we played early in the morning. We played in the afternoon, and then we played like twilight round.
Is that Florida or California?
No, that's Pennsylvania.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was thinking like Laurel Canyon.
No, Laurel Valley.
Yeah.
Exclusive little club. I got invited there with a couple friends, and 54 holes. A lot of golf to play.
It's weird how with golf clubs, they can be extremely exclusive. I told you about the Los Angeles Country Club, how they still don't allow any Jewish members into even if you have the $200,000 to fork over a year to join. If you're Jewish, they just say no. You got to go to the Riviera Club.
That's so crazy. I can't even believe that that's okay.
In 2020.
Yeah.
With money comes power. And with money, you can manipulate the law, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, if that's how it is, I'm Jewish. I wouldn't even want to join.
Right. And I'm sure there's a lot of wealthy Jewish people who would love to join that club. They just can't.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, tell me more about what you've been doing with Zen Drop, because you launched Zen Drop, like soft launched it now about 14 months ago. Yeah,
so it's fun. You were pretty much the only person to help market the platform. When we first spoke, we were expecting, maybe 500 to 1,000 people to sign up after your video. That's what you told me.
Yeah, that's what I told him.
And, it's not an easy business. There's so much communication. There's so many logistical things to deal with. And the day that we launched it, we had 8,000 people sign up. And then that first week, we had 20,000 people sign up. And when we launched it, we were making promises that we can source products in 1 to 3 days. And we were ready to do that for 500 people, but not for 20,000.
Yep.
So we were like, we really pumped the brakes. Over the last year, we've been focusing on making the user experience as good as it could be. And it's one of those businesses that you need feedback loops. You need to know what's wrong to make it right. You almost can't create a perfect product, especially in the logistics and especially from China, off the cuff. You need to launch something, get feedback, make iterations. And we've had thousands of items in development since we launched. So we've been really just dealing with the customer base we have. Haven't been putting anything into marketing. We have about 85,000 people on there now.
Damn.
So it's a fun project. I mean, our team is just so passionate about it, and our leadership team, like, we're all in the same like realm of spirituality and like bettering ourselves, and we get on calls every day, and it's kind of like a family. So it doesn't feel like work. It feels like we're creating something that's really fun to make.
And you're big into spirituality. You're actually the first entrepreneur who I ever heard talk about meditation.
Really?
Yeah, the first one. I read it in your book on the way here the first time. I'm like, that's interesting. Because I never put meditation and business together. I always thought they were like separate, but it seems like they go hand in hand. Like
that's what a lot of people think. I mean, for me at least, my life is just so much better when I just kind of simplify it. Because
classic.
There's so much shit going on all the time. Like you're getting blasted with DMs, with emails, with text messages, WhatsApp notifications, the news, your news on your phone popping up. And it's so easy to get your mind distracted and manipulated by the content that you're addicted to seeing.
Yeah, that as it's programmed to do.
Yeah, and exactly. But with meditation, and there's only so much you can comprehend from a conversation or from reading. You really comprehend it at a deeper level once you start practicing it. Like, I've been really practicing meditation now for about 2 or 3 years, but I started maybe like 8 years ago, but I've been really getting into it seriously with the meditation room in my house where I spend a non-negotiable hour in there every day.
Damn, you're up to an hour?
Well, I'm not necessarily sitting in meditation for an hour, but I have a sauna in there. I stretch, I clear my mind, I play nice music. It's got fountains and lights, and it's like, I have so much going on between Zen Drop and then like some other business ventures that sometimes I don't know where my stress is coming from.
Right. Like
I don't know what's making me have this like little bit of anxiety here and there, but when I sit and I just let my mind relax, the things bubble up. It's like, oh, it's that conversation that I have been meaning to have that's been on the back of my mind. But there's so many things on my mind that it's like, I don't know necessarily what's causing that feeling. So that's one of the benefits.
And you've taken it a step further recently. You deleted all social media. You like download it sometimes, but for the most part, it's off your phone.
I download Instagram once per week to check my DMs.
Yeah.
But I have a very like addictive personality. So I'll just find myself sometimes like opening my phone and like I'll go to do something and somehow I'll end up on Instagram.
Yes.
And then I'll like see something that triggers me to go do something. Or actually really like the worst thing is like first thing in the morning, sometimes I would open Instagram.
Yeah.
And the thing I don't like is that I don't have control over the energy that it gives me. Like I may get the nicest message in the world and I feel great. But I may also see something in politics or some riot or something that like gives me this ugly emotion. And especially first thing in the morning, like our energy is very fragile. So we're very like, malleable based on what we consume. And I would go on Instagram and it would like start my day in a direction. I'd have to get back on track.
Yeah.
There's no need for that.
I'm the same with the Robinhood app.
Yeah,
if you checking that every morning, it's like you might have a good day and you might have a bad day.
Yeah. That's why I trade options, but I'm never doing more than like 2 trades at a time. Otherwise I'm like, I got to look at it every 5 minutes.
Right. And when did you delete all the apps? Like what made you cause that decision and when did you do it?
I think inside I knew I just needed to like get it off my phone, and I deleted it a few times and re-downloaded it. And I'm not against it. Just for me, it doesn't necessarily need to take up that space in my life. So I deleted it probably about 6 months ago.
Gotcha.
And
So
just
before
started,
the Social Dilemma movie.
yeah.
Have you seen
I
that?
actually literally just watched that like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I've been talking to people about all the problems I think about social media, and everyone's like, you got to watch The Social Dilemma. And I watched it, and it was like everything I'm thinking and way more. So it was cool because it like kind of validated a lot of the thoughts I had.
Yeah, it's really strange because I never really thought about how like when the tech companies came, they're kind of in a gray area, and now they're in a real gray area because they can control the information, and furthermore than that, they can basically control the population. With one, like when he said with Facebook, they can make one little tweak and affect a third of the world. That is unbelievable power, and it's going to be interesting to see with more and more pressure coming down on them how they regulate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy to think that the smartest brains in the world, and like thousands of them, their sole objective is to make you as addicted to their technology as they could, because those are the KPIs that they use to gauge how their business is doing. You know, I used to work for Yik Yak.
Right? Yeah. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, and we were a fresh startup. I mean, it lasted maybe 3 years total. I came on very early to help with the marketing, and the KPI was how many daily active users, how many monthly active users, and how long are they spending on the app. And the more those numbers were up, the better the company was doing, the more money we can raise at a higher valuation.
Yep.
So that was the job.
And it wasn't like when you say that, I guess a lot of people will probably picture you like behind a desk, like doing all this work. You were having a great time doing the marketing for Yik Yak.
Yeah, I have to say that was the best job that I could even imagine.
Yeah.
So I was, when I first started my career, I was throwing concerts. I owned a company called Electric Flurry. You can look it on YouTube. It's still there. But we used to throw the world's largest foam party, and we did it all over the country. And the way we would market it is we would go to new markets. We'd go on campus. We would literally bring a MacBook Air. We'd have hand out flyers. Hey, can you help us with something? Log into Facebook, use a JavaScript that would invite everyone's whole friend list. And like in a week, we would have 200,000 people invited to an event page. And we would sell out an event that nobody had ever heard of. And then Yik Yak caught wind. You know, they raised their Series A, $10 million. Their goal was to get college users on. So they reached out to me asking if they could sponsor my shows. But like I took a big crash and burn and like didn't have any shows going on. So I was like, you should use the same marketing tactics I was using to sell shows, but to give out a free app, go to campus, blah, blah, blah. And they loved it. Literally the next day, they're like, can you fly to Atlanta tomorrow at 6 a.m.? I was like, sure. Went there. I kind of like had a vision for a tour, like, because we had a big budget. I never even knew that you could raise $10 million at that time.
Right.
So like I had kind of like a marketing budget I was developing. So I was like, we need to get a tour bus. We need to wrap it. We need to get a mechanical yak. Yep. We need to get a mascot. Yep. We need a team of promoters. We need koozies, cups, T-shirts, ping pong balls, everything. We need to go on campus. We need to make a scene. We need to film it. It needs to go viral. And I pretty much had a month to like plan all that. And then I lived on the bus for 4 months as we went to like all the schools, and we had no idea what we were doing.
What year was this?
This was 2014, I think.
Like the first semester of 2014 is in like August.
Yeah, I started working, I remember, August 1st for Yik Yak, and the tour was scheduled to go out on September 12th. So I had like a little bit over a month to do all of this shit. I had no idea what I was doing. I had to find a tour bus, negotiate it, hire a driver, do background checks, get a bus wrap designed for a 45-foot bus, get a mechanical yak built. I had to figure out what schools to go to, find hotels at every town that would accept a 45-foot bus with a trailer, find a student on each campus, hire a whole team of promoters, and like just plan out all the little things in between. I had a month to do it.
So when you're on campus, were you like, when you're doing the promotion, were you like there at the table?
Yeah, oh yeah, I was wearing the mascot sometimes. I was.
Oh really?
Because here's the thing: we there was 8 of us on a bus, and I was leading it. So you had to lead by example. If I thought I was too good to get in a mascot costume, what's that going to say to everyone else?
Yeah.
We had one goal: it was to get 1,000 downloads on each campus in 2 days. However the hell we wanted to. That was the goal.
I feel like you easily broke that.
Oh, we crushed it. Because it was a network effect. So if we got 1,000, we knew it would grow to 4,000 within 2 weeks.
That's insane to me because all I'm thinking about is like we definitely crossed paths, and I definitely saw you at one point because that's right when I went to Mizzou, and you went to Mizzou like to tour, right?
I actually threw a concert at Mizzou, an electric flurry show.
Right. But then you came back, right? Because I remember the Yik Yak people
Yeah,
coming.
but that was the second round of tours. So after the first tour was such a big success that the next semester we got 2 tour buses and went one in the Midwest, one on the East Coast.
And you went to the East Coast.
Well, I didn't actually go on those tour buses.
either
I
ones,
was
okay.
managing those at that point.
Gotcha.
And then after the whole experience, we realized that the cheapest way to get a user was simply to hand them a pair of Yik Yak socks in exchange for a download. It was like 88 cents a pair of socks.
Yeah.
As opposed to doing the whole tour, we simplified.
Yep.
Instead of getting a bus, all this stuff, all these people, the mechanical yak, we literally, because we had to go global after we kind of took over the U.S., so we had to go to Australia, New Zealand, England, Ireland, a bunch of other places.
Did you go on that trip?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It was so cool. We would ship like 20,000 pairs of socks to Australia and ship our mascot. And then me and my friend Sean, who was also working at the company, we just flew there. We hired 2 people who were native to the country, and we'd go to like anywhere from like 7 to 10 universities and just literally go on campus and like figure out what to do. Like sometimes we'd go into bars and we'd be like, hey, we want to buy 500 shots and we're going to bring a mascot in here. Is that okay?
Oh my gosh.
And like most of the time they're like, what do you mean you want to buy 500 shots?
And the mascot would hand out the shots?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because in certain countries the drinking age was 18.
Oh man.
it was so fun though. It was like the mission was get 1,000 downloads.
Yeah.
I feel like a freaking like Secret Service agent. Like go on a mission, make it happen.
How many downloads did they have before you came on?
100,000.
And how many did they have after?
After the first tour, 10 million.
And what about the second? Goddamn, what about the second tour?
I don't remember the number. I just remember we went from 100,000 to 10 million in like 4 months.
Is that when you knew like you are going to be successful forever? Because having that under your belt, like I always say, it's one thing to make a lot of money. It's a whole nother thing to have a lot of real good experience, because the experience itself is it's literally not worth anything. I mean, it's worth more than money because you can make unlimited money from the experience itself.
Yeah, I mean, no, I didn't know right there. I always had this naive self-confidence. Like I just like knew that, I was destined to do something, which was probably a good thing. It was probably from like when I was brought up well, my grandparents, my mom, they're always telling me I was good, getting my self-esteem up and stuff. But the tour didn't, signify that I'm going to do well. But I did have a lot of shares in Yik Yak, and we were trying to become a unicorn company. And had we reached that, $1 billion mark, I would have been pretty wealthy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the company went under after like 2 years, but I was the only employee out of like 81 at the time that sold my shares and made an exit.
Yeah.
And that helped me kind of get to that next step in my career.
It's so weird how paths cross like that, because I used Yik Yak as my sole marketing for college campus videos, like one of my old YouTube videos. My whole goal was go viral on the Yik Yak, get them talking about me, even plant Yik Yak so that they know where, like what happened. Like when I jumped into the fountain face first, I was like, damn, some kid from college campus videos just jumped into the fountain. Did anybody else see that? And then the next like 5 yaks were all talking about it. It was the weirdest thing. It was like an instantaneous reaction to what's happening on campus.
Oh yeah.
So when I did that, I planted one, but the other like 5, 6, 7 all came naturally. It's all over.
There was a lot of interesting use cases for that app. A lot of people met their spouse and got married from that app.
A lot of people sold drugs on that app.
A lot of drugs being sold. Yeah. It was funny because we'd be on tour and like we would see people making yaks about us. It'd be like, oh, like, did you see that, that girl on the Yik Yak team? She's so hot. And like, we'd always be like, oh, what are people saying about us?
Yeah.
And we could see, and it's anonymous. It was fun.
Do you have like one specific story that comes to mind when you think of those tours?
I mean, there was so many stories.
Because you went to college for a little bit, right? You didn't graduate?
I graduated.
You did graduate?
Yeah.
Where from? New York?
Yeah, SUNY Albany.
Okay. I was in the impression that you dropped out. So you kind of like lived a second college life through all this.
Exactly, yeah. And I lived at spring break for a month, which was really fun, at Lake Havasu.
Where's that?
It's in Arizona. Okay. It's like everyone, if you're in college and you're on the West Coast, you know Lake Havasu. I hired my best friend, one of my best friends, to come help manage it. We had a team there, and we just lived at spring break. We got this giant 200-foot, like 20-foot tall inflatable slip and slide. It would cost $54,000. It had a yak head on it to like squirt water out. and we put it at spring break. And literally, like the job was like man the slip and slide. They had concerts every night. It was like a big thing. So we'd have the yak on stage, the crowd surfing. We like the screen behind the concert would have yik yak stuff. So I was basically just managing the sponsorship. At that point, we had raised like 62 million more. So we had like huge marketing budgets. That was really fun.
Did you bring any electric flurry into that, as in bring in some foam parties to the Yik Yak tour?
I did not actually. That was originally my plan when they reached out, was like, how can I leverage this company to get Electric Flurry back in motion? But then
interesting.
But then I was like, that's really selfish. Like, that's like not in their best interest. That's in my best interest.
Right.
And I was at a low point in life because like I had made a lot of money when I was like 21.
Yeah.
And then I lost it all, and I was like lost, and I moved back in with my mom by the time I was like 23. And I was like, Jared, like you just got to be real, be true. And so that's why I didn't tell them like, hey, we should do an Electric Flurry tour sponsored by Yik Yak. It was like, if you guys really want to get people to download the app, this is how you should market it.
Yeah.
And it ended up leading to, being at spring break, since, I built up a little bit of a reputation of being really good at marketing with Yik Yak. My friend was in China for the Canton Fair, and I was always interested in what he was doing. So he called me when he was there, and he's like, Jared, I got the coolest product. Like, you have to check it out. I think you know this one.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is it? He's like, well, I can't tell you what it is, but I'm going to send you one. And I'm like, you're going to send me one from China? He's like, yeah, I'm going to put one in the mail.
They do that just for the wow factor? Like, he didn't want to like ruin anything?
Yeah,
at a time?
exactly.
Okay.
So I'm like, what? I was so curious. And about a week and a half later, I get this box in the mail. It was a big box, heavy. I was like, what the hell is this thing? Cut it open, and it was a hoverboard. But nobody had ever seen hoverboards before. So I was like, what is this thing? Like, no way this could work. I plugged it in. There was like 5 of us in the suite that we were staying in. And everyone's like, what is that thing? So like, I get on it.
Wait, was this during the Yik Yak tour?
This was at spring break when I was there for a month.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was in the hotel room I was staying in. And I get on it, and I'm like, shaking, like wobbling. And then like, I like catch my balance, and I'm like, whoa. And I'm like going back and forth, and everyone's like, oh my God, like what? And I'm riding around the hotel room, and everyone's like freaking out, sending Snapchats, taking photos. So then I take it outside of my hotel room, or like around the campus of Lake Havasu, like the resort we were at.
Oh yeah.
And everyone's like pointing, and everyone is drunk and like freaking out, running over, like, where did you get that thing? How much was that? And I'm like, I don't know where to get it, and I don't know how much it was. And like that was the thing that I was like, wait a minute, I should start selling these.
And have you heard of dropshipping at this moment?
No, I didn't even know anything about e-commerce or dropshipping. But I was like, I have a lot of time. I was like, what if I go to Starbucks every morning at 7 a.m. for like 2 weeks? Maybe I could build a website. So I literally built my first Shopify store. I had a cameraman who was there with us who just took some photos of the product, videos of the product, and I ordered business cards with the name of the website. And literally every time someone asked me about it, I would give them a business card. And I had found a supplier in China that would send them out for $350, and I listed them for $1,500 just to see what would happen.
So yeah, that's a good like if in my position, I would be like, okay, I'm gonna try to sell these for $500. Like, what gave you the confidence to sell them for $1,500? That's such a huge profit margin.
That's what it looked like it was worth. I mean, it was such a cool piece of technology, and you couldn't buy them anywhere.
Right.
So I was like, $1,500.
And people, I'm sure, did not mind waiting too much for something like that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was probably I wasn't actively trying to sell them, but it was just something I'd keep in my pocket, and I would ride it around. And I was selling like 1 or 2 of them a week, which was a lot. My salary at Yik Yak, I think, was like $55,000 or $60,000.
Not bad.
And so if I was selling, making an extra $1,000 or $2,000 a week, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So basically, at that point, I was like, how do I sell 1,000 of these and make $1 million? Like, it started putting things in perspective. I remember I was in Atlanta, and I saw this. Have you ever heard of a Fisker Karma?
Oh yeah,
the electric car.
Definitely.
So I saw one that was like all chrome, and I was like, what the hell is that car? I was like, that thing must be like so expensive. I looked it up, and it was you can get a used one for $50,000.
Yeah.
And I was like, so if I sell 50 of these, I can go buy one of those. It started putting things in perspective. So I started getting serious about like, how do I sell 1,000 of these? I started asking everyone, like, what would you do, blah, blah, blah. long story short, I ended up getting connected with the most famous person I knew at the time, who was my soon-to-be business partner, professional snowboarder, Jack McCall. Awesome guy, super cool. Loved the product. He had like 15,000 Instagram followers at the time. And I didn't know anyone with followers.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. Like, what if Jack posts this? Maybe people will buy it. I didn't know anything about influencer marketing. He posted, a few people bought it. And then he's like, dude, I have all these friends in LA that have like 10 million plus followers.
Oh, man.
And I was like,
There
you
it
think,
is.
you think they'd be interested? He's like, let's go out there. So I flew out. The kid, it was Nash Greer.
Or was your carry-on the hoverboard?
Dude, you were able to ride him onto the airplane.
Oh, man, before they started blowing up.
Dude, I was handing out business cards in the airport.
Wow.
Yeah, riding it right up into the airplane, like through the aisle.
Yeah.
There was no regulations on it.
Reminds me of the time where you could hit vapes in the plane.
Yeah.
Like with the gray area, go to Buffalo Wild Wings. After prom, I was ripping my vape in Buffalo Wild Wings. They did not care.
Yeah. So we got there. Nash Greer, his brother Hayes Greer, a couple other kids that were like, they were young, maybe like 15 to 17 years old, but they had like 10 million plus followers. And I was like riding it around in their tennis court, and they were like, that thing's sick. They were riding it all excited. And I was like, you guys think we could sell 1,000 of them? And they're like, 1,000? We could sell 10,000 of these. I was like, let's go. So they called over their manager that night. And their manager, Alan, was like, he's like, dude, like they never want to do any of these kind of deals. Like, what did you tell them? I'm like, nothing. It's just a cool product and a cool brand. So we ended up making a deal. They all threw in a little bit of money. We got inventory, and I had them post, and we grew to like 250,000 followers in a week. We did like over 200K in our first month.
And what was the name of the product?
Glider.
Glider.
GLIDR.
GLIDR. Huh, I don't think I'm sure I ran into it. It's just not ringing any bells.
Yeah, you can Google it and see a bunch of content from it.
So let me ask you this. How many of those fuckers did you end up selling?
Well, it was October, going into Christmas season.
Perfect.
And I get in contact with Mark Cuban.
Oh, wow.
I hear through the grapevine that Mark Cuban's buying the patent on these things. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, that's really good news and really bad news potentially, because I might not be able to sell them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know anyone who knew Mark Cuban. So I went on his app, Cyberdust. It's a messaging app. And I found him on there, and I sent him a message.
Oh, really?
I said, hey, Mark, this is Jared Goetz. I own this brand, Glider. I hear you're going to be buying the patent on the hoverboard. I'd love to have a discussion to see if maybe we can work something out.
Did you get a tip for that app? That's like a brilliant idea. Or did you just like connect that yourself?
I don't remember how I came up with that, to be honest with you. Anyway, he answers me. Very quick answer, not much to it. And I'm like, I have to figure out how to talk to this guy. He's so rich and has so much more going on than me. Like, I'm just some random guy selling hoverboards. So I end up sending him some more messages. He asks me for my phone number, sends me a text message, and he's like, hey, Jared, I'm going to give you a call on Friday. And I'm like, okay, sounds great. Like, I'm excited. I went home to visit my mom, and I was like, hey, Mom, I'm talking to Mark Cuban on Friday. And she's like, oh, my God. Like, proud mom and stuff.
Classic.
And so I'm like waiting all day Friday. Don't hear anything. And I was supposed to go out with my friends that night, too, because I hadn't seen them in months. And I'm like, I can't go out. What if he calls me? So Friday, no deal. He texts me late Friday night. Hey, sorry, I got caught up with the family. I'll give you a call tomorrow. So the next day, I went and so I ended up going out the next day, and basically we found this. Have you ever heard of kava? I think we talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier.
Somebody was telling me about kava, and I was like, I'm so curious to try it.
This is when you discovered it?
Yeah, this is when I discovered kava.
Okay.
So we went to this kava bar, and I pounded this like huge bowl of kava. And I wasn't feeling so good after. I went back to my friend's apartment, and I had to throw up. Like, the kava was not sitting well in my stomach. So I'm like in the toilet puking, and I get a text from Mark Cuban. He's like, calling you in 2 minutes. And I'm like, I'm literally like, face is all red, like my head hurts.
I think it wasn't a FaceTime.
I couldn't have been. Yeah, this was like before FaceTime was normal. But I was like, I couldn't have been more in a worse state. So I'm like, shit, like, get it together, Jared. Just like ran down. We were up in an apartment. I ran down the stairs, went out to the street,
So was it all physical, or were you like mentally like a little loopy?
I was mentally loopy, physically not feeling good. I was not, but it was a good, sometimes it's good to just push yourself in those situations.
Right.
So I ended up speaking to him. He loved the brand we built. He loved all the influencers behind it. And he wanted to work with us. His one stipulation was you can't sell these cheap Chinese knockoffs anymore. And this was right before, November, December, where we could have made millions of dollars, many millions of dollars, because the brand was getting a lot of traction. I had one night where we were out, and everyone from the Anaheim Angels, we had like a $22,000 order coming on Shopify. Like, it was getting a lot of momentum.
And were you given any discounts at the time for like multiple orders, or were just like most people not even ordering more than
Here
one?
and there, we'd have an influencer post with like something, but basically the ultimatum with him was like, I want to work with you. I'll have the patent by February. In the meantime, you can't sell anymore.
In the meantime,
I know. And I was like back and forth, and I was talking to my business partner and my business partner's dad, and my business partner's dad was like, no, fuck that. Like, you got to keep selling them. And I'm like, but we could make like a couple $1 million, or like we might be able to make hundreds of millions of dollars if we partner with Mark Cuban. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I ended up deciding to turn off the sales. I sent him an email like, look, you can't buy anymore. So,
oh my gosh.
And then he ended up not getting the patent.
Oh my gosh.
But it wasn't his fault. It was a lot going on. And
right.
And then there was, the fires and the batteries catching fire and them literally blowing up and stuff. So, but it was cool because it showed me that the potential of e-commerce. Like, that was my first like entryway into selling anything online.
And what'd you do with all that leftover stock?
We didn't have that much stock. We just kept selling out the stock.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like a couple hundred units?
Yeah, I think we were importing like 50 at a time, 100 at a time. We weren't selling. Remember, we're selling for $1,500
right.
each. We weren't selling that many units.
Like maybe a couple a day?
Yeah, like 10.
10 a day? Geez, that's like 20,000 a profit a day. 15,000, 20,000 a day.
Yeah, it depended on the day. But we also didn't run one single Facebook ad.
All influencer campaigns.
I didn't even know what Facebook ads were. I didn't know anything. But at that point, I was like, I'm making $55,000 at my job. We just did like $200-something thousand our first month with this product. It's like, I think I need to quit my job and go to China and find the next product. We were going to expand on the glider brand. So my partner and I, Jack, he lived in Seattle. We decided we're going to meet in China.
And is this after you heard that Mark's not getting the patent?
Yeah, this was right around that time. It was like, it wasn't happening. Yeah, it was like right after that time.
And did he break the news to you, or did you just hear through the grapevine?
No, he was in contact. But it wasn't like the top of his priorities. It was top of my priorities.
Right, of course, yeah.
But it didn't end up working. So Jack and I are like, all right, let's go to the Canton Fair. Canton Fair, for anyone who doesn't know, is like the biggest trade show in the world. It's 12 million square feet, 65,000 exhibitors. It takes 15 days to walk the whole thing. And it's in China.
Damn.
Yeah. It's in Guangzhou, China.
Is it all in one building?
It's in like 4 astronomically gigantic buildings that you can't even imagine unless you go in them.
Wow.
Like, they're like, each building is like 5 football arenas, like huge. And they do it every year. So Jack and I are like, let's meet in China. We'll go to the Canton Fair. We'll find something else we can sell under the glider brand. So we're like, I've got a visa. We book a flight there. We don't know what the hell we're doing. So anyway, this is actually kind of a funny story. I get to China after like a 24-hour journey. I was like exhausted. My phone wasn't working when I got there, so I need to go get a SIM card. So I go to this booth that's like, buy SIM cards here. I buy a SIM card, put it in my phone. It's like not working, and nobody speaks English there either. It was like barely in English.
Yeah.
So I like go back to the booth. I'm like, no, not working. She's like, 20 minute. I'm like, okay, I'll wait 20 minutes. So I get my suitcase, come back, still not working. She gives me a new one. I wait another 20 minutes. At this point, I'm like in the terminal for like an hour. And I'm like, shit, my phone's not working. So I'm like, all right, whatever. Let me go get some cash. So I go to the ATM machine. My card's not working. So I have no cash in China by myself, no phone.
So was it working like earlier, or was this like...
The phone?
No, the ATM card. Is this like...
Yeah, I called the bank before I went to China to let them know I was traveling, but somehow it didn't work.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, okay, I have no phone and no money, and I'm in an airport in China. And I don't really know where the hotel is, nor do I know how to communicate where the hotel is.
And this is like early 2017?
This is like 2015, 2015 or 2016.
Oh, when were you doing the hoverboards?
2014, 2015.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like 2016 when you were doing that. Okay,
No,
that clears it up.
This is back further.
Gotcha.
So I found someone who spoke English. I borrowed their phone. I called American Express, and I was like, "Hey, I need money. I'm in China." And American Express always hooks you up. So they're like, "Okay, where are you?" Blah blah. They enabled cash. So I went to the machine. I got cash. Then I go out to get a taxi, and I had the name of the hotel written down in Chinese, but I don't know if it was right or not. So I get in a taxi, and I'm in this taxi, and I'm behind these metal bars. That's what it's like back there.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't grab the driver or something, I guess.
It's like a cop car.
This guy didn't even know how to say hello. There was no form of communication between us. It wasn't even hi, no, nothing. It was so I get in the car, I hear the phone ringing on his speaker, and somebody answers and hotel, and I'm like, Lan Hai Hotel? Talking in Chinese, blah, blah, blah. Hang up the phone. I'm like, okay, I think he might have got the hotel. At this point, I gave the driver all the cash I had, and I still had no phone. So I'm like, all right, my hotel's, it was 15 miles away when I booked it. So I'm like, all right, it should be maybe 20, 30-minute drive. I thought maybe 15 minutes if it was quick. Get in the car, and it's 6:30 p.m., so it's starting to get to dusk, a little dark. We're in the car for 30 minutes, and I'm like, I don't see this hotel anywhere. In the car for 45 minutes. It's getting dark out now. I'm in the car for an hour, and I cannot communicate with the driver.
Is he driving at all, or is he just sitting there?
No, he's driving.
Okay.
We're driving, and we're now we're in the slums. We're in the ghetto of China. And I'm by myself with no cash and no phone. So at this point, I'm an hour in. I'm like, there's a good chance I'm going to have to sleep on the street tonight because I can't communicate with anyone, and I have no money. So I'm I'm kind of getting all nervous now. So hour and 15 minutes in, I'm like, oh my God, Jared, what did I get myself into? I don't know what to do. Yeah, and you can't borrow someone's phone there because not even numbers, nothing. Well, the numbers, but there's no letters. You can't
even communicate with the guy with the phone.
Yeah, and I couldn't use the translator because I had no service.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, an hour and 30 minutes goes by, and I finally see my hotel in the distance.
No way.
I'm like, oh my God, thank God. So I get to the hotel, I'm exhausted. I connect to the Wi-Fi. I let everyone know I made it there alive. I'm safe. I'm here in China. Everyone was all worried about me. And I fall asleep, and then I'm praying my business partner Jack would make it in. I'm he's supposed to be there in 2 hours. I'm waiting up for him. He's not there. So I fall asleep, and I wake up to the door opening up. 5 hours later, his flight was delayed. And I was like, you made it. We both made it. We were okay, we're here. We're in China. And that was the start to our trip. From there, it was an epic trip.
So do you think he took the actual right route, or did he go way off and then finally find it, or what?
To this day, I don't know.
Wow.
Because you can't read. There's no street signs you could read. Everything's in Chinese. I can't even comprehend anything. There's nothing for me to know.
And what'd you find at the fair? Did you find any good products?
So yeah, we went around. We were testing all the things you could ride, these unicycles that were self-balancing and all this cool stuff. And then we came across those inflatable loungers.
Oh yeah.
So this is where things kind of took off. We found these inflatable loungers. It was a very hot booth. Everyone was there. Everyone's trying to buy them. And I'm like, we need 4 samples so that when we get home we could film content. And they're like, we don't have any samples. I'm like, I'll give you $500 for 4 samples. And of course they agreed to it because they love the money over there. And we basically got 4 samples, flew back, filmed a bunch of content, and we're like, all right, we got to figure out how to sell them. Because we placed an order too while we were there for 300 pieces or something. And I didn't know anything about Facebook ads still at this point. It was only influencers.
Yeah.
And we didn't have enough to send to influencers. We had this order on the way. So I found some guy on Upwork who can run Facebook ads. And we were right off the bat getting a 5x ROAS.
Damn.
And that was my first experience with Facebook ads.
And this is 2015?
This was probably 2015, 2016-ish.
That sounds like 2015 Facebook ads.
So we started getting it to work. And Jack and I decided, let's just move to LA. We'll get an office. Let's do it right. So we didn't know anything about fulfillment. We didn't know what we were doing. We just had all these inflatable loungers, and we had really good content. So we rented this house and we were like shipping all of them out of the house. We had like hundreds of boxes on the floor. We didn't even have a printer. Like we'd go to FedEx and like borrow a printer, like print everything out there, come back to the house, slap them all on, drive them all to the post office. And yeah, that was kind of like my entryway. Well, yeah, that was kind of my entryway into e-commerce.
Is that the product you did the 2 million on in 60 days?
So basically we were selling our high quality branded ones at like $80.
And how much were you getting it for?
We're getting them for like, $10.
Not bad.
But our CPAs got up to like $35, $40, at that point. But we weren't only selling online. We were selling, on Amazon. We were going to trade shows, going to expos. We had a lot of teams on the ground at like music festivals.
Didn't you do some mall stuff too?
Yeah, we were trying mall kiosks. We were trying everything. Again, we didn't have a patent on the product, but after grinding for like 2 years, like selling these things, a year and a half, 2 years, we did a couple $1 million in sales, but like our bottom line profit was like maybe $200,000 total. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't really much to like live in LA for both of us. And It was a struggle, put it that way.
Yeah.
And I discovered dropshipping at that point. I was like, I think I probably told you this story. I was at a trade show and we were talking to people all day and I was exhausted. And I had a flight the next morning back home. We were in Dallas. And I was about to go to sleep. And I'm like, I get an email on my phone and it's like, how to sell products without ever seeing or touching them. I was like,
do you remember from who?
Yeah, it's from John Mack.
Mack.
Who owns Commerce HQ, and we're doing business together now, which is so funny. When I talked to him, I was like, bro, you changed my life. And I'm about to go to sleep, and I'm like, let me just check the email. It's like, I open the email, it brings me to a webinar, and it shows me how to find products in AliExpress, sell them, and then fulfill them using Oberlo. And I was like, that's amazing. No more inventory, no more trade shows, like just marketing. So I was like, let me try selling my same product, but like a knockoff version of it, like a cheaper one, a $35 one. And that's when I started getting I was spending the first day I tried a $5 Facebook ad and I got like $50 in sales.
You yourself? Like this is the first time you're doing Facebook ads?
First time for myself doing Facebook ads.
And you said you're selling what? The cheaper version of that product?
Cheaper version of the same product, yeah.
And were you getting it for like a couple dollars?
No, on AliExpress to get them shipped, it was like $22. But I was selling them for $35, and people were buying 2 or 3.
Oh, okay, I see. So you're going more quantity, but at a slimmer profit margin.
Well, after that whole drive that we mentioned before, I was spending anywhere from I was spending probably 10 to 15K a day and doing 50K in sales every day. So I was making actually a bigger profit margin because the average order value was like $50 or $60. And then if I was shipping out 2, it only cost me like $20 because the shipping price was better. And then I think you know what happens next. That's when I got
fucked you over.
Real bad. So let me take a quick sip of water because I've been talking a lot.
Absolutely. I was going to say those hoverboards, the way you said about that reaction that when you first wrote it, have you seen my 9-bot go-karts?
Yeah. You get the same reaction?
I get, I thought, okay, the i8 got a lot of attention. Okay, the Tesla after its wrap got a lot of attention. Nothing even comes close to riding those around the city. I've had people chase me down on cars, screaming at me out the window, like, where did you get that? How much? Everywhere I go. And it's so weird because when I'm sitting at a crosswalk and I press go, I always say to my friends, I'm like, look, I guarantee you 99% of people who pass by in cars are going to turn their head. Every single person, every single time, it's every single time. And when we're driving through the park, when Fez was over, I'm like, just brace yourself because it's an uncomfortable amount of attention. We came down this hill and there's probably 50, 60 people in the park. Every single head was staring at us, and they only go 13 miles per hour, so you're not going too fast.
Yeah.
So I really don't know what to do half the time because first of all, everyone wants to have a conversation. I'm not stopping for anybody. I'm flying by, but that product has the same exact effect. They're just not marketing it too well.
Right. Well, they're a big company too, though.
I think Segway.
Yeah, Segway owns them now.
Yeah, so they need to get on their influencer marketing game.
Yeah, they do. The mailman's here.
The Amazon lady.
Every day.
Every day. So
shout out to Jeff Bezos on that one.
Jeff Bezos.
Hopefully you hear this. So doing very well with this product. I thought maybe, at the end of my drive when we were doing like 50K in sales, I was like, okay, if this lasts one more day, like I thank the universe. Like there's no way this can keep working. Fast forward 2 months, like clockwork every day. So I'm back in China for the Canton Fair. Finish up in China. I decide I'm going to go to Thailand by myself for a week. Go to Phuket. I'm just loving life at this point. I couldn't spend enough money there. It was so much fun. I'm like, I found myself in a long tail boat by myself with this guy who barely speaks English from Thailand driving it in the middle of the ocean in the pouring rain, screaming on the top of my lungs. Like that's what life was like right then.
Wow, that's like straight out of Shawshank Redemption. That like scene at the end when you're finally free. Yeah. That's probably the moment when you really realize like you will be successful the rest of your life.
I had like this incredible energy going through me. And life ebbs and flows. I mean, so I was at an incredible high. And then I had like 3 more days in Thailand having fun. One of my virtual assistants reaches out and she's like, Jared, we found about 50 tracking numbers that aren't working. And I'm like, yeah, we're doing 2,000 orders a day, 50 tracking, just, figure it out. Next day, she's like, Jared, we found about 150 tracking numbers that aren't working. And I'm like, we're doing 2,000 orders a day, 150 tracking numbers. Maybe it's an error. Like, figure it out or refund the customers, like whatever. And then the third day, I'm getting on the airplane to fly back on a 24-hour journey where I had to stop over once, and it was a long journey. She goes, Jared, we found 500 tracking numbers that aren't working. And now I'm like, well, that's a little bit alarming. Because if there's 500 that they found that aren't working, like, how many actually aren't working?
Keeps going up too,
So I get on this flight, and I'm like thinking about it, and I land in Florida, and the first thing I do is open my phone, go on Skype, hit up my VA. I'm like, what's the scoop? She's like, yeah, we found about 1,500 tracking numbers so far that aren't working. And I'm like, uh-oh.
And how many orders were you doing a day?
2,000.
Okay.
But that they found so far.
Right.
And this was, and I had nothing against Oberlo, but it was an Oberlo trusted supplier. So I was like, at least the Oberlo is like theirs that I can like go hit them up. It wasn't like I was just going through AliExpress, which I would have been screwed. So I ended up talking to them, getting in touch with their CEO, and we started running scripts on all of our orders, and we identified over 7,000 tracking numbers. And that's 7,000 tracking numbers for average order of $50 each that we had to not only refund people, but we're getting chargebacks. We're getting horrible comments on all of our ads.
Were your payment processors shutting you down at this moment?
Not quite yet.
Like PayPal wasn't on their bullshit yet?
That was like the least of my concerns at that point.
Okay.
I basically lost like $450,000 like that. And not only did I lose the money, which I would have been okay with, but my Facebook page score dropped so much that they shut down my ad accounts. Anytime I ran an ad at all, it was just getting hit with negative comments, angry customers, and it basically ruined the business. Like, had I not crushed it for the previous 2 months, like I would have been out of business.
Yeah.
But I was like, should I keep doing this? Should I give up? Like, I don't really know. And I was like, if I was able to do this with one product, like, there's no reason I can't do it again. So I was like, let me just test a shitload of products. But at the same time, I'm getting like 1,000 emails a day. I had to hire another 10 VAs to answer all the support. Anyway, long story short, we ended up testing more products, finding more winners, and like getting back on the track. But that store was probably going to do like $10 to $15 million that year.
Yeah.
But instead it did like 5.
Before this, we were talking about like scammy e-com guys. That just shows you're not a scammy e-com guy. Like, I know a lot of people who would get in that position, cut ties immediately, and run with the money.
Yeah. I mean, thing is, like, dropshipping is such an easy business model because, like, the burden of inventory is not there that you sometimes have to deal with the downfalls of it. And I accepted it and, just kept going with it.
So that website's actually still up, right? It's kind of like use it. Because when I looked it up 2 years ago, it was like this website no longer sells, but it's up as a case study. Because I guess you linked it in your course.
Yeah, but I'm so far beyond that now that I don't even like think about it anymore.
Yeah, now you're into the supplier side. Do you think that situation is what inspired Zendrop?
It was definitely one of the big reasons. Making fulfillment easier. Fulfillment's such a problem, and the problem is that AliExpress is horrible. I don't even have to explain why. Mm-hmm. And B, you get all these sourcing agents that are really good at because they know what we want. We want fast shipping, we want cheap prices. So they're really good at selling you on it. Maybe shipping out your first 100 orders really well, and then cutting corners on quality, on shipping, and making their margins here and there. They might ship out, if you're doing 100 orders a day, they might send out like 20 of them slow, and like change the quality. So we wanted to basically, be able to provide the same sourcing and fulfillment solutions that we had. So we took on our main supplier as the main supplier for ZenDrop. But recently, about 3 months ago, we did a joint venture and opened our own warehouse in China with our own employees, our own sourcing team, our own logistics. So now we have full control over the operation.
Yeah, and I was in a similar situation. When we first met, I told you about that, about these Chinese suppliers just lying to me. I was selling those masks at the time, and I'm like, they say it's going to be there in 3 days, and then 3 days goes, and they're like, no, we still don't have it. 3 days goes, because I sold out all of AliExpress completely. And then you're like, you should hop on this ZenDrop. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just like so used to Oberlo. That's right after I met Tomas, the founder. I wish I would have known this story because I would have asked him about that. I bet he remembers you very well.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, we like each other.
Yeah.
I had nothing bad to say about them. It wasn't because even we have our own warehouse and our own fulfillment in China. But we still have to deal with thousands of factories based on the products, and the factories lie to our own employees. It's a big thing in the culture there, like beating around the bush and not being honest to win business. It's hard to navigate that.
Yeah. I remember I used it, and then that's what allowed me to scale. Like I remember because, do you remember this? Like I can't remember. I had a couple thousand orders that never went out. And then you guys bulk fulfilled it for me in a day. Well, you sourced the product in a day, and then they shipped out 2 days later. And it's just like, I've been waiting a month. My PayPal got limited because of that. Luckily, I got it back. But they shut me down recently. Are you aware of all the PayPal bullshit that's happening right now?
No.
Oh my God, it is really bad. Ever since COVID started, I guess they've been trying to recoup a lot of their losses. I know one guy Luca actually just lost $250,000. Noah lost 50. My friend Angela lost 50, and they won't tell you why. They take the money.
I heard about that. They take it and they say, because you violated our policies, we're not giving you this money.
And I'm like, what policy? Because I got mine permanently banned after 4 or 5 years of using them the other day. And I'm like, what is the issue here? Like, I have the tracking numbers, I have all this. And he's like, they didn't say, but just know they do a thorough investigation every single time. And it's just like, I feel like there's a class action lawsuit because Junior, my friend, he also lost a couple $100,000. So they're organizing a class action lawsuit against PayPal because it seems like they're literally kind of doing like a bully method where it's just like we're like bulldogs. It's like when I was working for 2 men in a truck and they fired me and then took $160 out of my paycheck before they gave it to me to train the next person. I went in and I had it on recording. He was like, if you try to play the legal game, you're going up against some bulldogs. And if you come in as a pit bull, we're going to chew you up and spit you out. So I kind of feel like that's what PayPal's playing. I got that money back, by the way, because I'm like, well, I got a lot of chihuahuas. So we're going to come back with this. As I was leaving the building, I got a call and he was like, all right, we'll print you the check.
Wow.
So I think PayPal is kind of power tripping right now.
Yeah. I mean, also because of COVID, as ZenDrop, we got hit first when you promoted us and we had way too many people come on.
Yeah.
And then second, we got hit by COVID, which for people who don't know, a lot of shipments from China come on commercial airlines. Mm-hmm. And obviously there was no commercial airlines flying from China to the US. So everyone's trying to figure out how to ship things. Do we ship them via boat? Do we have to ship them different ways?
Wait, so at this point, I never knew that there was no Chinese airlines whatsoever. I didn't so all the products in general that were coming from China to the US halted completely across
Not
the board?
all of them, but there was probably 70% less flights going on and more shipments because people were crushing with Facebook ads.
Yeah.
So customs was backlogged. The post services in China were backlogged. And what happened is, why I'm tying this in, is more chargebacks across the board. So companies like PayPal were taking huge hits with chargebacks.
Yeah.
If you start running money through PayPal, you take your money out and you run away, and then 2 days later somebody charged back, PayPal's liable for that.
Right.
So PayPal was probably trying to recoup funds that way. We ran into issues with merchant processors whose portfolio-wide chargeback ratio skyrocketed, and banks would stop supporting that. So it was a whole big problem.
What processor do you use for ZenDrop?
Stripe.
Oh, just Stripe?
Yeah.
That's good. That's good because a lot of people have bad reputation with Stripe. I love Stripe. I don't know about you. I've never had a problem with them.
It depends what you're doing. If you're, as a software solution, like for us, we have a lot of members on our pro membership. We do a lot of transactions, very low chargeback rates for ZenDrop, very lenient with refunds. So we never have any issues with Stripe. They actually give us a really good deal on processing. I mean, it's still expensive. We're still paying 2.5% of our revenue to them plus a transaction fee, but they're very helpful for us. And, their tech team was really good for integrating. And our system is so complex that we need data across like every platform to be able to reconcile and make sure that we're paying the right amount to China, make sure we're refunding. Like it's a lot going on. Stripe has been a good solution for us.
So you haven't run into any problems with them yet?
Not for ZenDrop, no. I mean, I've had problems with them in the past with like e-commerce stores.
Gotcha. So where do you plan on taking ZenDrop from here? Because you have 80,000 members, right now?
Yeah. So
no marketing. 80,000, no marketing.
Not a dollar in marketing. So we are releasing a new program called Zen Vision. I don't want to get into too much detail on it, but I'm extremely passionate about having very structured books. I think not a lot of entrepreneurs have a good eye on their cash flow. They see $3,000 in sales on Shopify and they're like, oh, I only spent $1,500 on ads. I made $1,500 today. But it's like merchant fees, chargebacks, refunds, all the other bullshit in your business. Oh, I paid a freelancer $40 here. I paid for my developer to do that. At the end of the day, you maybe only made $200. So Zen Vision's going to basically reconcile your daily P&L for each of your stores and then go against a master sheet that shows you all of your cash flow. And you'll actually see where you stand as far as your net worth as an individual and how it fluctuates each day so that you can see the impact of your business on your money.
Right. So it takes it a step further than order metrics, as in it ties in your personal expenses as well.
We literally, so I've been using the same bookkeeping method and like iterating on it for the last 4 years. So we're taking the method that I use, that I get a spreadsheet every day. It's called my master sheet. And all of my businesses have a daily P&L, a profit and loss sheet. Mm-hmm. And all those daily P&Ls reconcile into one master daily P&L to show me how much money my whole enterprise made that day or lost. And then that goes into a master sheet. And it, we probably have anywhere from 5 to 50 expenses each day between little things like Hulu and going to dinner to developers to employees, salaries across the board. And I see how my net worth fluctuates each day. But it gives me a very clear peace of mind that A, my money's not being leaked anywhere. Nobody's using my credit card for Facebook ads somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like I know exactly what's going on. And if I didn't have this system in place, I wouldn't have the confidence or foundation to be able to build better things. So we're building Zen Vision to give that confidence and that vision into people's businesses for the everyday e-commerce entrepreneur.
Yeah, especially like a lot of e-commerce, most I would say e-commerce entrepreneurs are very young. So when you're making, I've seen it time and time again, like especially like someone who's like 18 and they just start making this money. They don't really understand, like they don't know what to do with it. I was the same way when I started making money, but now I got like, the life insurance, the SEP IRA. It's like that stuff is very important, but overall it's super important just to be aware.
Yeah.
Be aware of what's going on so you don't end up in the hole like a lot of people. Then they get desperate and then they do desperate things.
Yeah, and then forget about it. Like you think you made all this money and then you don't realize you owe this and then your taxes come up and you have nothing. And like, but the problem is a lot of these people have built up this ego that like, oh, I'm successful. I made 40 grand last month. And it's like, well, no, you didn't. You made like $400 at the end of the day. And they have this ego to uphold to. And now they don't have any money. So now they don't feel good enough to themselves. And now their confidence goes down and it leads to depression. It leads to anxiety. And like, it's a big problem. So, the software that we're releasing is ideally at a surface level going to help these types of problems.
That's going to be so sick. So outside of ZenDrop, what is your other focus? Because I know the main focus is obviously ZenDrop. What would you say is your other focuses besides golf and the dogs? What is there anything else that you're really like passionate about that you're working towards outside of those things?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I took a big break from social media. I am going to be coming back, but with a different personal brand. I don't want to be known as the e-commerce guru.
Yeah.
You know, life kind of pushed me in that direction and it led me to where I am, and I'm grateful for it. But that's not the legacy I want to lead. You know, I want to be talking more about the things that make your life fulfilling, simplifying your life, you know, meditation, things like that. So I'm working on a new book that's going to be teaching ancient wisdoms and techniques for the modern day world. Working on a podcast. That's really where my and the thing is, like, you can't do too much stuff or nothing will get enough attention.
Yeah.
That's what actually happened to me when I had Ecom Hacks Academy. I had ZenDrop. I had all my stores. I had Ecom VA services we were offering people, consulting. We were building stores for people. Like, I had so much going on. My energy was so scattered that we weren't making any serious progress on any of the projects we were working on.
So when you simplified all that into a few main things, what do you think the effect was? What was the effect that you noticed?
It allowed us to grow something special. I mean, we have over 80,000 people on ZenDrop now. I'm happier than ever, you know, less stressed than ever.
Most important.
It's the most important. I mean, you're going to die with nothing anyway. You better be happy on this planet.
Yeah.
And when you're happy and you're in a good mood, you know, the thoughts that you need to proceed and keep moving forward come naturally to you, as opposed to you stressing out and trying to figure out what to do next and keep focusing on what you don't have. If you just, you know, focus more on what you do have and why you're happy and what you want to be like as a person, as opposed to what you want to do, then the thoughts that you need to do what you want to do come to you naturally.
Do you listen to your intuition more, or do you listen to your brain more?
Intuition.
100%. What do you think intuition in itself actually is?
I think that, I mean, this can go down a really deep hole, but I think
Let's
that
go there.
We're not our minds. We're not our minds. We're not our bodies. I think that there's a separate entity that we actually are, our souls.
Our soul.
And our soul has knowledge that is oftentimes totally, you know, blinded by our minds. I think our minds are, especially today, when our minds are there's so many impulses that are causing so many thoughts that aren't actually helping us, that blind our intuition, but sometimes it shines through and you feel the right answer. So I think simplifying your life, quieting your mind actually strengthens your intuition.
Yes.
You know, sometimes, as I mentioned earlier in this topic, is like you feel like something's off. You don't know what it is. You're stressed, but like you don't know what you're stressed about. And your mind is just circling, and like you're keeping all of your tasks and things that you want to do are like circling, and you don't want to forget them. So like you keep them up there. And like, you know, if you forget them, you'll feel better, but then you might lose something. So like getting organized and dumping all that stuff off your brain into some kind of organization system, and then focusing on quieting your mind allows your intuition to get stronger. And when your intuition's stronger, like I said, like the thoughts you need to progress come to you from your intuition. You're not looking for it outside. You got to look within.
Yes. A lot of people only look outside.
Yeah.
My thoughts are, I have two theories on intuition. One comes from Outwitting the Devil, how the intuition is the other self. And the more you listen to that other self, and then the stronger it gets and all that. But my other theory is that the intuition is directly linked to the subconscious. And obviously the subconscious tracks everything, stores everything. It's like a hard drive back there. And I feel like that intuition is the sixth sense that's directly being accessed through the subconscious, and it's giving you that data. So when you have an intuitive thought, I feel like it's like a compiled formula and calculation by that subconscious that does all these like equations, does all this, and then spits out the exact thought you need. And I was listening to Jordan Peterson on the way here, and he's like, all the time, people will have their conscious will tell them to do something. They'll tell them to do this, and then they don't listen to it, and inevitably, what they fear will happen does happen. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that happens to me all the time. Like my intuition says this isn't a good idea, but I do it anyway. Every single time, my intuition was right. And it's like a muscle, you know. Like if you're only working on your right bicep and you go to lift something with your left, it's not going to be as strong. So you want an equal strength on both sides.
I agree. And I think that a key is like if you do listen to your intuition and you take action based on it, you're actually taking action in general, which leads you to the next point, which could open up anything. Like you mentioned something earlier about McDonald's, how the guy who was selling the milkshake machines got an order for 8 of them. And he was like, 8? We don't ever sell 8. And then it was actually 12. And that led him to selling milkshake machines to all of McDonald's or whatever the story was.
Yeah, there's only one McDonald's at the time.
Right. Whatever the story was. But the point is, sometimes if you don't listen to your intuition, your mind is conflicting and you don't actually take any action. You actually revert back in and do nothing. And you're like, I'll do it tomorrow. Or like you get on Instagram or you watch a movie and you just don't do anything. But the key is that you don't necessarily need to do you don't have to make the right choices every time. Just make a choice.
Yeah.
Because making any choice in most cases is better than making no choice. Making the worse of the 2 choices in most cases is better than not making any, because it leads you to that next thing and builds that confidence.
Yeah.
You're like Elon Musk. People are like, how the hell did Elon Musk build Tesla? It's such a big undertaking. Like, how can you do that?
Along with 2 other major companies.
But it's because he's been consistently doing things and moving forward and building his confidence and building his network and building his people, building his infrastructure to be able to take on an undertaking like this. He didn't sit in his room and do nothing and just think Tesla to existence. He made moves, which led to more things, which led him to Tesla. I bet you he didn't know he was going to build Tesla when he was 16, 17 years old.
He was just coding games at the time.
Just doing things.
Have you read his autobiography?
No,
I'm sorry, just biography?
I haven't.
It's really good.
I'm sure.
Check it out. He has a weird upbringing, really strange upbringing.
I'm sure. He seems like a extremely intelligent guy.
Yeah. I think a lot of people get crossed between what they should be and what they want to be. And I think the brain is kind of saying what you should be, like play the safe card. This is what you should be. Your parents, when you do this, do this. Mm-hmm. And I think the intuition really tells you who you want to be, because all the time I get I think the most common question I get is, how am I supposed to figure out what I want to do in life? That's step 1. Because if you start going down the wrong route, like Tai Lopez said, one of the greatest tragedies in life is finding out you got really good at something you don't like to do.
Yeah. Well, I think on the topic of figuring out what you want to do in life, it's important first to get yourself in a really high energy state and let that come to you. Like sometimes people will be depressed or tired or just, eating chips all day, like sitting around on their computer and like, what do I want to do in life? Like your vision's not going to come to you in that state. Like if you get up, pump out 50 push-ups, scream a little bit and bump some music, and you get yourself in a high energy state, and then you think about what you want, that's actually what you want. Like sometimes when you're in a low energy state and you start thinking about your life, you start thinking about how it's not good or like I should be doing something else or blah, blah, blah. But then you get in a good state and you're like, no, I'm on the right track. The key is first getting in that good state. And I think knowing that it starts with your physiology, it starts with your body and your, getting your endorphins going before you should even start to plan what you want to do is a key for a lot of people listening.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think that they're gonna find themselves by making money, and that they're gonna be happy. Like it's so cliche, but that theory that money makes you happy is not necessarily true. Because I remember one day specifically, everything was going wrong in this day. It's this horrible attitude, but I think I made like $23,000 that day, and I'm like, this is really interesting because like this money would have changed my life a while ago, and this money is still a lot of money today. But I'm not feeling good about it. So at the end of the day, you can be a super rich fucker, but you can be miserable. Like
100%. But the thing is that, people kind of need to have that experience. Kind of like when we were talking about meditation earlier, you can only comprehend so much through words or reading or hearing something. You have to experience it. I think that if you're chasing money, like chase it, make it, and you'll realize that it's not what leads to fulfillment. Mm-hmm. You need to experience it.
You need to experience the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
Something that really stood out for me in the Outward in the Devil book was, he said, disappointment cured my stubbornness. And before COVID, I was on such a winning streak. I started feeling like I knew it all. Like anything I touched, it seemed to work really well. And then like I was going to hit the bottom of the stocks and I missed it. I didn't put money in and it kept going up. I'm like, it's definitely going to go down. It kept going up. And that's when at the time I had who later became my mentor. And And before this, like if I put in that money into the stock market and to this day, it's still making money, I probably would think like, see, I can't fail. Like I know it all, you know? But since I missed that and then took some losses, the disappointment cured my stubbornness. And like going back home from LA and all that really showed me a lot. That was like real low times because everything shut down. St. Louis, there's not much to do, but at least there's the parks. Let's shut the parks down too. I'm locked in this stupid ass little apartment, just horrible. And then that really not only made me learn about myself, but made me really appreciate what I had, because I had it for 2 years. And then like, it kind of like I got in that situation where it was like, I just moved here, but I've explained that so many times on the podcast. Do you know what happened? Did I ever explain this to you?
I don't know.
Okay, let me explain it to you.
Okay.
Especially because the context is important. When I had the house in LA, dream life, okay? This is exactly what I dreamed when I was 10. COVID started happening. I'm like, okay, I'll keep an eye on it. I flew back home late February because I'm like, I'm paying $3,000 for this apartment in St. Louis. I'm not even here. I'm just going to get a cheap apartment for like $1,000. It was like a 2-bedroom just for a place to stay whenever I visit St. Louis, rarely. And then I go home February 28th, move everything out of that apartment that I loved into this just like right next to my parents. Just like there's like one window in it because I'm like, I could care less. Like, so then I fly back, and 13 days later, they're talking about shutting down the state. And do you know @Hustler?
Yeah.
This fucker threw me into a paranoia because he's like, here's video of them at the California border. Trump's making the announcement tomorrow that he's sealing all the borders. Get out while you can. All this stuff. So he's like, I mean, it was like, it looked like a long centipede. His story, it was all fear, 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 fear,
Oh
fear.
my God.
And I'm like, I think people are going to start fucking destroying the city. I think people are going to start killing each other over food and stuff. So I'm like, I pump everything in the I-8. I didn't know I was leaving until the night before. Pump everything in the morning, drive out. Trump's like about to make this speech. I'm going like 100 because I think they're going to fuck Hustler. Fuck Hustler. That's just one thing I want to say. So then I get back and I pull into that apartment and I'm like, it's not too bad. You know, it's cool here. And then I had the I-8 all in cash. So I bought that $75,000 cash. And I'm like, the stock market crash is here. I got to get this cash. So I sell the car. I get it in cash and he drops me off at the Tesla place. And they're like, okay, you can lease this Tesla for 2 years, but we're going to need 40% down. And it's going to be like just a stupid amount of payments. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. It kind of defeats the purpose of me selling. Like I went zero down so I can put all this money into the stock market. So then I'm like, why am I getting these horrible deals? So then one morning I'm like going between Teslas and I'm like, I'm just going to get a Camry for now. It's right up the street. And I'm like, because I don't really need it. And I was like, we'll see. So now I went from this house in the Hollywood Hills with an I-8 in the garage to this tiny apartment with a Camry. And I'm like, maybe I should go. I called 212. I'm like, maybe I should go back. And I'm like, now I'm going to be paying 3 leases. This apartment, this new apartment, and $6,000 a month for the Hollywood Hills home. Like, I'm just going to stick it out here. And so that put me in a position which was really interesting because I'm like, this is what my life would be if I never tried. This is exactly the life I would have. My dream car back 4 years ago was the Camry. I got the Camry. And outside looking in, it was really interesting because I knew people were making comments like, oh, Scott lost it all. Scott lost it all. It's like just in profit alone in March, I made 6 figures. So at this moment, I'm living the lowest quality life I've lived since I left my parents. But I had the most money I've ever had in my life. So it was like really fucking confusing in my head. And all the time I'm deep into stocks. And so that's what really taught me that environment's everything. Like, when I wake up in this beautiful home, I just feel motivated. And indirect investments, actually, talk about in your book. When you get into your old Lambo, you're like, it makes me feel
good.
And that's when I talked to you. I'm like, I realized, and that's when I tweeted that you talked, and you're like, you knew this, bro. You got to feel like $1 million to make $1 million. And I did not feel like $1 million whatsoever in that apartment. And that just taught me so much. So disappointment cured my stubbornness.
That's an awesome story and really relatable probably to a lot of people and a great lesson to learn. But I also think it's really important to be able to find happiness with nothing. I think that building that foundation is important because a lot of people listening are probably like, well, this is why I'm not happy because I don't feel like $1 million. But in reality, if you can make yourself happy with nothing, with solitude, with yourself, with what you have, that'll attract that other stuff into your life. But if you focus on what you don't have, If you focus on, oh, I don't have that house, or I don't have that car that I want, you're going to keep getting what you're focusing on, not having things.
Didn't that happen to the Dalai Lama, or is that Gandhi? Like, wasn't he like a prince and he had everything, and then one day he woke up and just gave it all away and went to the mountains?
I don't know that story.
I think it was the Dalai Lama because I was reading his book, The Art of Happiness. I didn't finish it, but I'm pretty sure he talked about that in there. And see, that's just a whole nother level. For me, like I grew up in a very, like I wouldn't say, it's hard. I don't want to get into the details, but I hated my environment every single day of my life until I moved out. And environment sucks. So when I went to college, it was like, I think a 400 square foot dorm room with 2 people in it. And so it was like bunk beds and all that. And so I'm like, I was always thinking Hollywood Hills or just having a nice apartment in general. Every place I went, worst car in the parking lot, 98 Accord, 260,000 miles on it, PGA sticker from my grandpa right on the side of it. So like just having these things in my head of always wanting this. And I know it might sound materialistic, but when it comes to environment itself, the life I'm living is not anything I'm used to, not anything my family's used to, and nothing I've ever seen before back in St. Louis. So to go from that down to there taught me a lesson. I guess I'm still working on finding true happiness outside of environment, but I know for a fact that what I learned from that, for me at least, environment plays a major toll on my mentality.
Yeah, I totally understand and totally agree. I also went through some really similar things. It's also important to note, and maybe you're a little bit different than me, but once you have eyeballs on you, once you're getting all the attention, it's a lot of pressure to uphold an image.
Yeah.
So for me, like getting off social media, getting rid of the Lamborghini, going to, a modest Tesla Model X, like it looks like, it's to me, it's like less flashiness, less attention on me. It allows me to really, I'm more of an introvert too. Mm-hmm. I like to kind of be on my own and do things. But it allows me to do what's true to me and like actually focus on the things that matter to me, not the things that I think matter to other people. Yeah. I think that's an important thing as well.
And you mentioned how you had a similar situation. I'd love for you to get into the details of that because that was your first business. And you mentioned that earlier on the podcast.
Yeah. So, when I was 17, 18 years old, I was always hustling, trying different things, car wash businesses, moving companies.
You did car wash businesses?
Yeah.
How'd you do that?
A mobile car wash.
Okay.
Yeah, like we had like a thing that we'd lug in a trailer and go clean cars. Like stupid, whatever. It was learning, right? Mm. And then I got the opportunity to, I found out that there was this guy that was renting out mansions in the Hamptons during prom season. And he would rent them out to prom parties each weekend. So he'd rent the whole house for like $15,000 for the month. And then rent them out each weekend for like 20 to 30 grand each weekend. So he was making a bunch of money.
For sure.
So me and my friend were like, yeah, we should do that. So we like borrowed some of my friend's parents' money, like rented the house, started doing that. And it was cool. And it got me like, okay, you could make money in this world. So we basically did a favor for somebody's sister with one of these prom houses. They like lost their house. They were supposed to rent the house and like they lost it last minute. So we had a property for them to come to. So we did a big favor. And the girl who it was, her brother owned like one of the biggest concert promotion companies. He was like 3 years older than us. Like we all looked up to him. He was like flying around on private jets with Avicii, like, really cool guy, crushing it. And he's like, to repay you guys, I'll give you the opportunity to partner on a Steve Aoki show in Albany when the tour comes there. And we're like, yeah, great. And he's like, we're also doing a Lupe Fiasco tour. If you want to partner on that too, we'll do back-to-back nights. Like, you got to find a venue and like you guys will promote it and we'll set it all up. We're like, great.
It was like 2009?
No, this was 2010 or 2011.
That's Lupe was popping back then.
Oh, he was number one Billboard, like,
yep.
All the lights or whatever songs he did. And we're like, yeah, this is great. And he's like, all right, cool. You just got to come up with half the money. And I was like, how much is it? It's like, yeah, you guys just need to come up with $75,000. And I was like, $75,000? Like, but we're like, this is a great opportunity. We can't pass this up. So I went around to like all my friends. I'm like, you want to invest in the show? Whatever you put in, you'll get your pro rata share of profits. So we ended up raising $75,000, like between everyone in our fraternity, our other friends, we made it happen.
How many people you think put money in?
Probably like 15.
Oh, okay. Not
Yeah,
bad.
like a fair amount of people. Some people threw in 10, some people threw in 2, like whatever. And so we had back-to-back shows. So Tuesday we had Steve Aoki, Wednesday we had Lupe Fiasco. And we were promoting it like crazy for a month, every day, going out, giving out flyers, going to campuses, just doing everything we could to promote. We didn't know what we were doing. And Tuesday night, we sold out the first show, Steve Aoki, made $45,000 in profit. And I was like, wow, like that's like, what my mom probably makes in a year. I was like, that's insane in one night.
Like that was your cut?
It was like the total profit on the show. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was our half of the profit. But then I had to pay back investors, and
right.
so like I didn't make $45,000 that night, but our half of it produced $45,000 in profit. And then Lupe Fiasco the next night lost $45,000. So we ended up breaking even. But I was like, we generated like hundreds of thousands of dollars in ticket sales, and the reason we didn't make a lot of that we basically broke even is because we paid Steve Aoki and Lupe Fiasco so much money to be there.
How much did each charge?
I think Lupe was like 100 and Steve Aoki was like 35 or something at the time.
Damn.
He was like still newer. Like he wasn't that popular. And but I was like, what if we threw a show that we didn't have to pay these artists? Like what if we came up with our own show? And we're like brainstorming, and this is back when Life in Color was called Dayglow. They did like the world's largest paint party.
That. Yeah.
So we're like, what if we like came up with the world's largest foam party? Like we'll come up with our own spin. So I was in college, like I was in the library, like making a flyer, and I was like super into it. And I made a flyer, and we booked the same venue that we did Steve Aoki and Lupe Fiasco, and we learned how to market a show. So we did it on Halloween, and I remember we were selling a lot of tickets, and we were like close to breaking even. And I called the Armory. That was the name of the venue. And I'm like, hey, Julie, like, somebody just tried to buy a ticket and it wouldn't go through. And she's like, let me check. It's like, yeah, you guys sold out. And I was like,
Oh.
what? We sold out? Like all the tickets?
How many tickets?
It was like 2,500 tickets.
Damn.
I was like, what do you mean you sold out? She's like, yeah, there's no more available. You sold out. I was like, I looked to my friends. I'm like, we just sold out this show? So we made like $50,000 on that show, profit, because it was a much lower production show. We didn't have the artists, and the tickets were cheaper.
Yeah.
But we were able to make more profit. And I was like, I had like 7 business partners at the time. I was pretty much running shit, but then I had like all different people in my fraternity, and we kept a lot of the people who invested in the first shows as partners. So I was like, this business model is amazing. What if we do like 10 or 20 of these shows a year? So I ended up partnering with one of the people. We did our next show in New York City at Webster Hall, sold out. We had like billboards over the Lincoln Tunnel. Like we were like doing it up. And I graduated and I moved to South Beach, Miami, and we booked our first show there, sold out. We booked another show, like sold out. We were like on top of the world. Like I had this I'm like, I knew I could do this. Like, built my ego up, like 21 years old, like living in Miami, throwing these shows, getting, treated really nicely out at nightlife.
And
like
nobody can tell you nothing.
Yeah, I was like on top of the fucking world. And then we did a show at the Mullen Center at UMass Amherst.
Where's that at?
In Massachusetts,
okay.
yeah. And the Mullen Center is like their basketball arena. And I was like, I want to do one on a campus, like in their arena. And like they finally approved it. And we budgeted like 95 to 100K for the show.
And I imagine they're all like on the floor, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, on the floor. So we budgeted 95 to 100K for the show. The show ended up costing us like close to $300,000 to put together. And it was because we didn't know how to manage our cash flow. We didn't have good bookkeeping. We didn't have things organized. And we needed to sell about 3,000 tickets to break even. And we only sold 1,000 tickets. So I lost all my money, everything I had. Plus, I lost an investor's money, like $50,000. And I couldn't pay some of the people, like the stage and light guys. I couldn't finish paying them. And I went from like on top of the world, nothing can stop me, to like rock bottom. Like had a big falling out with my business partner, moved back to Long Island into my mom's apartment. And I was like just super like depressed and didn't know what to do. And I just started I was like, I got to start from the basics. Like, let me try to clear my mind. I started running every morning. I read a book called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And it was like, it opened my mind to like meditation, spirituality a little bit, and like be more gentle on myself. And like, cause I was just I was so distraught about the whole situation. And then I just started learning how to like let go and be happy. And then that's when the Yik Yak opportunity came to me right after that.
It couldn't have been a better time.
It was a great lesson. Like I literally got an email from a guy named Cam, who's a good friend of mine now, from Yik Yak saying, hey, our social media app's interested in sponsoring your shows. And I got a bunch of random emails. So I was like, all right, whatever, sponsoring our shows.
Was this before or after that show?
This was after everything.
Okay.
When we had nothing left. And I didn't expect that day. I didn't expect anything. I didn't know what I was going to do. And literally the next day after speaking to him, I flew out to Atlanta.
So he hit you up after the rock bottom moment?
Yeah.
I wonder if you finding that book and finding that meditation somehow led to that moment, like basically surfacing.
Well, I'll tell you this. Had I not gotten into the right mindset, had I not gotten that book, had I not been more gentle on myself, I probably would have tried to manipulate that relationship to get them to invest in my show so I can keep doing it.
Wow.
But I was like at peace, and I was like, I got to just be genuine and selfless. And like, let me just tell them what they should do. If they want to work, I had no intention of them hiring me. It was like, here's what you guys should really do.
So that's what inspired you to not have them sponsor it. That's what inspired you to have a more selfless approach and have it go a full Yik Yak tour.
Yeah. And it was like, let me just give value. And like, I have no expectations to the value. I'm okay. I'm healthy. I was starting to become grateful for what I had. And being in that state of mind, like people could feel have you ever like spoke to someone and they're just trying to get something out of you? Probably all the time, right?
The agenda.
But then do you ever meet people that are just like genuinely good? There's some people that go over the top, like, how can I add value to you?
Yeah.
What can I do for you? Let me work for free. And it's like, all right, relax.
They listen to Gary Vee a little too much.
Yeah, relax. Okay, we don't need this help. But if someone's like, hey man, like just thought of you and like I think this would be helpful. And it is helpful. Now I think of that person as someone who I respect.
Yes.
And if I have something to do, I would work with them. So that definitely taught me that lesson.
Wow, I wonder how different your story would be if you didn't read that book. How'd you come across that book, by the way?
I don't even remember. I don't remember.
The book found you.
Yeah. The Way of the Peaceful Warrior.
I'm sure a lot of people are going to be ordering that right now.
That's probably the first book that opened my mind to meditation and spirituality.
What was the main takeaway from it?
Well, it was about a college student who went to Berkeley, and he was like an all-star athlete, and he like thought he had his whole life figured out, and he went to the gas station to get gas, and the attendant was like this quirky guy who worked at the gas station, and he like told him something about his life that wasn't good, and the kid's like, who's this gas station attendant to tell me? He's just a gas station attendant. And then like he encounters the guy again, and he teaches us something, and then the relationship develops to a point where the gas station attendant teaches the kid that his whole life is wrong, that he's in a relationship that he shouldn't be in, he's living for everyone else's purpose, he's not doing what's right for him, takes him on this journey, talks about meditation, makes him happy, and totally changes the kid's life, the gas station attendant.
Did he keep going back to the gas station? Or
they keep like hanging out in the gas station.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I just noticed something. You got a new watch. What is that?
Oh, this is it's called a Memorigin. It's a company based in Hong Kong, and they make tourbillon movements.
Yeah, that reminds me of that one watch that I used to have. Remember the watch company that sponsored me?
But like a watch like this, they're like $7,500.
Yeah.
But they like look super sick. I got it on Touch of Modern.
Oh yeah.
I have a collect. Thing is, like, I think I don't wear watches like be flashy or like I don't even really wear them that often. But I like having them, like collecting them, because it's like such a cool little piece of machinery that you can wear on you.
And they go up in value.
Yeah, every watch I own, I got at a price lower than what it's worth right now.
You got an AP stolen, $23,000 AP, right?
Yeah, that was a moment where I was like, I'm never gonna buy another watch again. But
I'm sure that went up in value too. It's out there somewhere.
It got stolen from me in Vegas out of my locker at the spa.
Man. Now, what's your daily routine? Do you have a daily routine that you usually stick to?
So I've honestly been through so many different daily routines, reading and learning from other people, that it depends on the month. I haven't been in like the same routine for a year, but depends on where I'm at in life. As of right now, my daily routine is I get up around 6:30 or 7. I like to get at least like 7 or 8 hours of sleep. First thing I do when I wake up is I focus on relaxing. I don't focus on like my problems from the day before. I don't focus on what I have to do. I like lay in bed, drink some water, and I just like focus on feeling peace and relaxation. And then I read 10 pages of a book. That's the first thing I do. And then I go right into my meditation room. And
you're not looking at your phone at all until
no,
after the meditation.
occasionally if there was like someone that I was waiting to answer me from the night before, or like something I was dealing with in China, I might look at it really quickly, but I really try not to. And then I'll go into my meditation room. I burn some Palo Santo. It's good for the energy. I put on some good music. I go in the sauna. I sweat a little bit, and then I go and I hang upside down in my teeter machine. It's like the thing where you can hang. And
are those the things you strap to your ankles?
you put your legs in it, and then you like rock back, and you're like on a
Oh
platform.
yeah.
So I'll like hang upside down for like a minute, get like a bunch of blood rushing to my head. I'll like massage my face and my head, and like just kind of like wake myself up. And then I'll do 10 to 15 minutes of stretching, like deep stretching, my hips, my hamstrings, my back. And then I'll do anywhere from 15 to a 45-minute meditation, depending on the day, depending on what I need. And Sundays, I always do a Joe Dispenza meditation. It's called Blessing of the Energy Centers. And it's where you go through each of your chakras and you focus on them and you basically like heal them.
Did you learn that in his book?
I read about it in his book, and then I downloaded it from his website.
Was it Becoming Supernatural? Was that book classic?
Yeah, that's a highly recommended book.
Yeah, I need to go deeper into that because that's a long-ass book.
Yeah, I have a copy here if you want to borrow it.
I got a copy at home. I have so many books that I need to read, and it's a shame. I know Warren Buffett reads like 5 hours a day.
I think the key is just like I set my goal to read 10 pages, and I typically end up reading like 15 to 20 each day. But it's like after a week or two, I'm done with the book. Yeah. I'm reading actually Autobiography of a Yogi. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah, I have. That's for some reason I've been seeing that everywhere lately.
It's like 600 pages long, so I'm still not done with that one yet.
What's that one about?
It's about Paramahansa Yogananda. He's a guy who grew up in India. He learned about Kriya Yoga, which is like this very sacred form of spirituality. And it's his journey of meeting all these different saints and sages and like mystical people, and then coming to America and bringing it here. It's an autobiography of his life.
Gotcha.
But it's really entertaining.
Do you know anything about Transcendental Meditation?
I know of it, but I don't follow it or like know too much.
I hear a lot of good things about that. That's where my mentor strongly recommended to me, and he's like, these are the people who do it. He like mentioned like Jerry Seinfeld does it. Like it's really interesting. I got to dive deeper into it, but I know they're tm.org. Yeah. And he says that's one of the most powerful things I can recommend.
I think honestly any type of meditation is really powerful. I know Transcendental Meditation, you use mantras and you repeat it over and over again and you calm your mind and you practice it twice a day. But I think there's a lot of different types of meditations. I like focusing on my energy. Yeah. Really focus on my breath for like, I'll focus on my breath for like a minute or two until my mind is clear. And then I focus on my third eye, and I really focus on being aware that I'm aware. Like right. I'm like, if I'm aware that I'm aware, who am I? And it brings me to that higher self. But you need to clear your mind first to do that. You can't just be like, oh, I'm aware that I'm aware. You need to like get yourself. It takes me about 7 to 10 minutes to get into that state. And then the longer I stay in that state, the more really good ideas come through me.
Gotcha.
And I keep a notebook in my meditation room and sometimes I'll read the stuff I wrote and it's like, whoa, like how did I come up with this?
Do you write while meditating?
I typically will do it when I'm done.
Gotcha.
The thing is, sometimes I'll be like, I need to write this right now. And it's like, no, just relax. So you'll remember it. You will remember it. And if you're not all flustered, like you typically will remember it.
Yeah. Now, have you ever had anything supernatural happen to you while meditating? Like, do you remember anything specific where you get out and you're like, Whoa.
At one point, I think I've astral projected. It was during my 45-minute meditation, the Joe Dispenza one, where I focused on all my chakras, and then by the time I got to the last one, I was like in a different realm. Mm-hmm. But some of the stuff that I wrote down are like ideas that I could never have thought of by having a conversation or by reading a book. It's like stuff that literally flows through you when you're in that state. Mm-hmm. And I believe that, some of the best people in the world, the most famous actors, the best athletes, they've mastered themselves.
Yeah.
They've been able to figure out, like when I'm golfing, for example, I've gotten much better at golfing because I'm able to calm my mind and master myself.
Interesting. Yeah.
And trust my body and separate my body from my mind.
And you told me something interesting about golfing. You're like, it's especially like it adds value if you walk during golfing. But at the end of the day, when you golf, you see a far-reaching goal. And then you get there by putting the ball in the hole. And then it trains your brain to look, you see something in the distance, and then you get there. It's kind of like what you told me about living in an elevated surface with far-reaching visuals.
Yeah.
It tracks far-reaching goals.
Yeah, I learned that from Jeremy, our friend Jeremy.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He told me that because I told him I golf on it. He goes, "Oh, that's actually really good because when you have a long-distance view, it attracts you going far places.
Gotcha.
Doing good things."
The first time I ever meditated, I had a supernatural experience. I astral projected.
Really?
So basically, I was 19. I knew nothing about meditation. Again, like when St. Louis, nobody's talking about this.
Right.
Now it seems like there's an overall like kind of awakening happening in people where I see it. People are talking about this all the time. And it's really interesting to see where this is going to go. But I was in Colorado, and we went out there, and it was the second day. It was in Breckenridge, pouring down snow. So you know how like when it's really snowy, everything goes completely silent. You don't hear birds.
Yeah.
It's completely silent. So I remember my friend Aaron, we were looking for weed at the time, and he asked some guy in the elevator for like an eighth, and the guy gave it to him. So I it was my first time smoking in Colorado, and I took 2 hits, and then he didn't have a pass. So I had to go meet my friends at the top of the mountain. It's like probably 5-10 minute rally up there on the, what do you call those?
The ski lift.
The ski lift, yeah.
Yeah, there's another name for it too, but yeah.
So I hopped on there by myself, and it was just completely quiet, snowing. I'm warm because I'm like all bundled up. And I'm like, something told me to try meditating. So I like closed my eyes, and it's like I've never meditated where I can't hear a fucking sound. It's completely silent, and I'm just swinging there. And all of a sudden, I felt myself get lighter with my eyes closed. And I'm like I just felt, I'm just like, I'm going to let myself go deep into this. And then I let myself go deep, and all of a sudden my vision like turned black. And then I like astral projected above the United States of America. And I look down and I see it's the United States of America, but everything's black and the states are outlined in light blue, like the color of my shorts. And have you ever seen Donnie Darko?
Yeah.
Remember the orbs?
Yeah.
So I was in Colorado, and my friend Ben was in Illinois, and I was way up there, dude, the whole country. And I see in Colorado an orb start to form, and it forms, and then it goes into Illinois. Like, it's crazy. Look, I'm shaking a little even talking about this because I haven't thought about this in a while. And the orb went to Chicago, where my best friend Ben was at the time. And I'm like, let me see if I can communicate. And I'm like, tell Ben to call me and see how things are going. Tell Ben to call me.
Did he call you?
I did that like 10 times. So I didn't have my phone with me. So we're snowboarding. We only snowboarded for a couple hours that day. I get back. Right when I get back, the phone rings, and it's Ben.
way.
And he goes, "What's up, man? I'm just calling to see how things are going."
Wow.
And I'm like, "Why are you calling me right now? Like, what made you call me right now?" And he's like, "I don't know, man. Something just told me to call you and see how Colorado's going." And I'm like, "Whoa!" And I'm surprised I didn't get deeper into meditation back then, because that was one of the most powerful moments of my life.
Yeah. I mean, there's a vast unknown world that exists in dimensions that we just can't fathom with our 5 senses.
Yeah.
So I'm totally, I mean, think about it this way. If 50 years ago, somebody said, hey, you're going to have a little box in your hand that you can see someone from across the world on in real time and talk to, they'd be like, where are the wires? How could that happen? How's that going to work? But there's billions and trillions of little waves circulating our Earth, connecting everyone right now. What's so crazy about thinking that you can't have some kind of telepathy.
Yeah.
What's so crazy about that?
So if you went back 500 years ago and even said that, you get stoned to death.
Yeah, you'd be a
Or get
witch.
killed. Yeah, you'd be witch hunted.
Yeah, you should definitely read Autobiography of a Yogi.
I need to. It's like one of those books. Like it's like that book that you read. It keeps finding me. Like it keeps approaching me. It keeps finding me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, what do you think? This might be getting into too deep of a topic. What do you think? What do you think the soul is? Like in terms of like where we are right now, why it's in the body, and where it goes after.
Yeah, it's something that I don't know the answer to. That's for sure. I don't think anyone knows the answer to it. Some of the things that I've read, like in Autobiography of a Yogi, is that your soul lives in, or when you die, it lives in a different realm, and then it enters a different body, and you have ancient wisdom. And the longer your soul has been around, the more intuition you have. That's a theory. I think that there's definitely there are other dimensions, right? There's a fourth dimension. There's a space between time and space.
There's at least 12, I believe. That's what Einstein proved with his string theory.
Right. So, I think maybe your soul lives in another dimension, because you could tap into it. And like, there's been times where I've meditated and I've tapped into myself who's aware that I'm aware, and I've become that soul, and time went either extremely fast or extremely slow. So I don't know exactly what the answer is, but I think it's some kind of different dimension.
So in your opinion, where do you think creativity comes from?
So I think creativity comes from a relaxed mind. I think that creativity comes from the opposite of stress. I think that if you can quiet your mind and you can get rid of the circulating thoughts, your mind can sometimes tell you a bunch of things that aren't true. Almost always it's telling you things that aren't true.
Yeah.
I think quieting that and tapping into your intuition is where creativity comes from. At least for me, and I can't speak for other people, but when I have creative problems to solve, or I need to figure something out, like let's say I have to, hire someone, and there's like 2 people I want to hire, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to do it. And I sit at my desk and I think. I can come up with an answer, but if I go into my meditation room and I stretch and I focus on my body and I put on some good music and I feel good and I sit there, then that's where my creative energy comes from. It flows through me. So I think if you focus less on what you need to do and more on who you need to be, and be more present in your body in the present moment, that's when creativity flows through you.
So have you heard of the book War of Art? Not to be confused with The Art of War.
No.
War of Art. It's all about that. Joey Diaz, it's his favorite book, and it talks about where creativity comes from. And in the book, it speaks on how the whole game, like a large part of life, is eliminating resistance in so many different ways. And when it's kind of like what you're talking about, when you eliminate resistance, there's kind of that open flow. And the book states that the true professional who does creativity kind of is a little humbler, because he recognizes that the creativity isn't coming from him, it's coming from a muse or an angel. And when you have that less resistance, you start to have creative power, because you're literally not thinking too hard. Like a lot of people, maybe they'll be writing like a sonnet or like a book or like even a song, and they start to stress on the little details. When they start to realize that it's not them who is making this creative action, they get way less stressed, they get way less loose, and then it just happens. And I've noticed that in my own life. Like when I just like don't worry about the details and just do, I've had points where it feels like, holy fuck, how did I just do this? Like it's like when you're meditating, how did I have this idea? It could be ancient angels acting through our bodies.
Yeah, well, and most people, when they're in these types of situations and they don't have what they want, they think way too much and they try way too hard, and then it's like a paradigm or paradox. Like you try too hard, and then you don't realize that by trying less you gain more in that sense. But I'm a true believer that if you focus less on what you need to do and more on who you need to be, and being present in your body and in the moment, and you speak with truth, because you're not premeditating what you want to say or what you want to do. If you let it come through you, like when you're in a deep conversation and you let your words just flow from your soul, that's when the most creative words come.
Did I ever tell you about how I had the idea initially to like bring one product dropshipping mainstream?
You should tell me.
I was in a creek with my friends, and it was at night, and all of a sudden, dude, I'm talking, my body started shaking and it got super, super, super hot. Like, I remember that very specifically. It was extremely warm and shaking. And it was just saying, because this is when I was trying like watch stores and bikini stores.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got to make this work. And then that night, I just started having that feeling, like a surge of energy came over me. And I'm like, holy shit, I need to write this down. So I wrote down one product drop shipping. And in the morning, I Googled it. And there's one forum post about it on all of the websites. Like, I checked YouTube, I checked Google, and it was just that one forum post. And it was some guy like saying, hey, has anyone ever tried drop shipping with one product? And everyone was like, I don't know if it would work or anything like that. So I'm like, this might be my shot. This might be my shot. And I always think about that night because it's just like, what thoughts have I had that I've either ignored, or what thoughts have I never even allowed into my head that could have possibly changed my life even further? And so when you eliminate that resistance, like, because a lot of people would see that situation and be like, I mean, no one's doing it, so it probably doesn't work. A lot of people, like, I think the most success comes from when you do stuff that no one really has done.
And how do you think you eliminate the resistance? I think is the question.
You read the book War of Art because I can't say exactly all the steps he says, but it's really cool because they're really short chapters, and each chapter is a different kind of topic, and the whole book is about eliminating that mental resistance.
So there's another 2 books that are pretty much all about that, written by the same author. One's called The Untethered Soul.
I've heard that, yeah.
It's, every chapter is a lesson about being present, about eliminating resistance, things like that. And then The Surrender Experiment is his other book. Michael Singer is the author. And The Surrender Experiment is the journey of his life. He decided when he was younger, like 17, he's just going to surrender to the universe and let whatever happens happen and go with it. And who the hell is he to decide? Because the universe wants this for him. And you watch his journey from like living out of a van in Mexico to like getting this little plot of land in Florida to like inviting some friends over to meditate to like creating this big Sunday group to like going into an Office Depot and buying a computer because he was just interested in it to writing his first piece of software to talking to some guy that wanted to talk to him. Fast forward, he's a billionaire. Wow. He owns a huge medical processing software company that was acquired by WebMD, and he's a billionaire. And every step of the way, he just surrendered, and it allowed that next thing to happen.
Eliminated resistance.
That's literally all it was. But the problem is that we all have this notion of what we think we need to be, that when things don't go that way, we resist.
Yeah.
All the time. And not enough people are talking about eliminating resistance. Most people are talking about their Facebook ads.
Yeah.
Or most people are talking about what kind of checkout button should I use? Or it's like, well, hold on a second. You got to learn this stuff first. And this stuff's not taught in schools. Most people's parents are not, well-versed enough in any of this stuff to teach it to their kids. And I think, I strongly believe that a lot of the stuff we're talking about, if it was taught to the younger generations in school, like balance, sticking, just going with the flow, not having resistance, I think that the world would be in a much better place. I mean, if you think about the way that the system currently is, kids will get bullied, and then they'll go home and they'll eat bad, and they'll get fat, and then they'll get more bullied, and then they'll go home and eat worse because they got more stressed, and they get fatter, and they get more bullied, and then one day they just don't know what to do, and they go and shoot up a school, and now we're talking about gun laws.
Yeah.
And the gun laws is literally a Band-Aid. It's not a solution to the problem. A solution is teaching the foundation, teaching that that life is about balance, and if you get out of balance, just gently bring yourself back to it. You don't need to go crazy on the other end of the spectrum and then crazier on that end of the spectrum. You just gently bring yourself back to balance. I think that this is stuff that needs to be talked about more. Not the things that you need to do, it's the way you need to be.
Yeah, it's weird how the most important things aren't taught in school.
Well, who's going to teach them? There's not a lot of people that are talking about this stuff. This is ancient knowledge. This is stuff that's so clouded by modern day news that it all has an agenda by modern day social media that takes precedence over this because there's money behind it. There's no money behind talking about this stuff. And this is the kind of stuff that I'm going to be talking about on my podcast, that the whole preface of my book is about, is because it needs to be talked about.
That's why the devil has 98% of the people in this world under his control.
It's very true.
Have you ever seen Midnight Gospel?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, Midnight Gospel, it's by, I can't remember who it is, but it's really interesting because it's like a podcast like this, but they take the voices and then they have the guests like do other like certain voices so that it's a cartoon like the audio is from the podcast.
And it's a cartoon.
And they make a cartoon revolving around the topics. And they did this one on life and death, and I think about it so much. The bird talks about how a lot of people think they're just a single like just person among many, but really what it's like is a fishing wire, and every single node cross on those lines in the fishing wire is a person. So we're all connected through this fishing wire. And I think it's the Buddhism teaches that it's not necessarily the node that's important, it's the connections between the nodes. And by doing that, you release your ego and all that, and it's all about just the overall, like when you think of what to do, it's more about how can this better everybody rather than just benefit this node, even though we're all connected. And a lot of people forget. A lot of people don't even believe that we're connected.
Right. Well, how could you when you're so addicted to dopamine hits on social media and looking at other people's fake lives and comparing yourself to them and victimizing yourself for not being given these things in life? That's why so many people aren't able to focus on these things we're talking about.
Yeah, that data from the social dilemma, like right when social media hit, like 125% spike in like underage suicides,
yeah,
girls and all that.
It's unbelievable.
It's crazy. We're living in a weird time, and like I tell you, like that Outwin the Devil book just seems like that fucker is in it right now. Like with the way they're like kind of like glamorizing unhealthiness. Like obviously you see fast food, everything, but now they're like saying they're kind of encouraging people to be unhealthy, because when you're unhealthy, you're way easier to control.
Right, because your mind is not active. You're not focused on who you need to be. You're more tame because you don't have the high energy levels. Yeah, I mean, you got to just bring it back to the basics, and it's something that you need to experience. Like if you're listening to this podcast and you understand what we're talking about, you need to go and experience it. And I guess this is a great conversation because it reminds me of why meditation is so important. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of our minds have never been so fueled by so many external stimuli in the history of the universe before. And not just the external stimuli, but conflicting external stimuli that's driven by motives. Our minds have never been conditioned to be in an environment like we're in today.
Yeah.
Our minds have never, in the history, not even close. Technology is growing exponentially to a point where there's so much data on what makes you focused on what they want you to focus on that you really don't have control unless you get back to the basics. Unless you learn how to quiet your mind.
Yeah.
So quieting your mind and building that foundation is what will allow you to do what you need to do.
What do you think this is all bubbling to? Because like you said, never in history have people been like the way we are right now. And obviously like we found ways to like use it for our benefit, take advantage of it. Obviously no one would even be listening to this podcast if it wasn't for social media. But what do you think this is all going to? Because I feel like there's a tipping point coming soon. And that was really interesting, the social dilemma. They said like since the 50s or 60s, the processing power has grown by over 1 trillion x. 1 trillion.
Yeah. I don't really know what it's coming to. I mean, at this point, we basically all have universal knowledge because we all have access to Google. I think in the next 10 years, there's going to be a chip that's in your brain that gives you access to that knowledge that you don't really have control over. I think that there's going to be a lot more problems over the next 10 years as far as more riots, more fighting, more disparity, more polarization between different parties. And I also think simultaneously there's going to be a movement that brings awareness to these problems and brings solutions to people so that people could really experience what it's like to quiet your mind and have the peace that you need to be able to live a life that is fulfilling. I think there's going to be that movement simultaneous with all the problems.
Yeah, I see two routes. I think it's either going to be fusion with the computers, where we're going to have, because I was thinking about that with the Neuralink. Say they only release it to 10,000 people. Those 10,000 people are going to have a massive fucking advantage on everybody. Everybody. It's just like right when the cell phone came out. You have that cell phone, you can be anywhere and communicate. You can be on top of the news, especially like the stock traders. First time you could stock trade outside of like being in the NASDAQ and all that.
Yeah.
So it's either going to be that, or we're going to come to like some sort of overall awakening. I just hope it's not war. I hope war doesn't, because like it seems like in history, war always like brings
resets.
Down. Yeah, resets everything.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that if, the technology that's going to allow people to communicate through their minds, Elon Musk is working on these types of things. If companies get their hands on it, they're going to be exponentially more productive than other companies. Imagine not having to start an email thread, go back and forth for 4 days to get your full communication back and forth. Imagine just understanding each other immediately without the need to go back and forth and explain and explain and explain. It's like, all right, we're understood.
Mm-hmm.
And then those people can connect with the other people. All right, we're understood. You can accomplish more in one day than another company can accomplish in a whole year.
Yep.
Where conversation with this guy, well, he doesn't fully get it, so I need to convince this other person to get it so that he could talk to that person, so that we could have a meeting, and that could take months. But with the technology that allegedly Elon Musk is developing, those things will be understood immediately. I mean, we're going to make so much advancements as a civilization. At the same time, there's going to be more divide than ever.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that a recipe for? I'm not sure.
I guess we'll see. My theory is...
What's that?
How you're like, you had an explanation of why Elon Musk was able to start Tesla, Solar City, SpaceX all at the same time. What if he actually invented Neuralink like 10 or 11 years ago and implanted it in his own brain? And that's why he acts so differently. That's why he acts so calculated. What if this guy has had Neuralink for 10 years? And then that's like the marketing campaign when it releases. He's like, I've had it for 12 years. You seen what I do?
Yeah, that'd be a wild one.
He said it's only going to be like 30,000 when they release it.
Wow.
But he said he wants to get it down to like a couple thousand.
I haven't done enough research on it. I don't really have any background knowledge except for conceptually what it will be.
You should check out his presentation with the pigs.
Yeah?
The only pig that wouldn't come out was the Neuralink one.
Wow.
But he said you'll be able to like play back, save, upload memories, like send text messages just by thinking.
Yeah.
And a really interesting one, he's like, with this, you can cure depression, you can cure addiction. And I'm wondering, I wonder if people are going to be able to hack it to be like, oh, I wonder what heroin feels like. And then they feel it with no side effects. I think that could be an issue too.
I mean, we could be living in an entirely artificial world right now that's not even real. That's just basically we could be sitting in a chair in a different dimension, hooked up to the most advanced VR in the world, and that's our life right now.
Yeah,
like we have no idea, but
that's what they're saying. Duncan Trussell is the guy who has Midnight Gospel, if you ever heard of him. But he was saying that it's like a lot of people get caught up in the fact of like improving their character, but they get so caught up in improving their character that they forgot they have the goggles on. He's like, you're leveling up some like World of Warcraft character, and you don't even take a second to even realize it. And it's interesting. I wonder if like that is the case. Like you pay X amount of money in this other dimension, and then you put on these VR goggles, and then you get born, and then here we are. And this is what we signed up for. We just don't know that we signed up for it.
Well, we could be in a simulation, in a simulation, in a simulation, in a simulation so far removed that like, society could become so advanced and that's what it becomes. And then that's that next evolution. I mean, it's so hard to comprehend, but we could literally be in an artificial simulation right now that's already in another artificial simulation that's in another one. So far removed from reality that...
I think we are, but I don't think it's simulations. I think it is the dimensions.
Yeah.
And so that's why when we die, I really think... My theory, going back to what I think like all life and everything is, I think we're like the devil. Like when he said, I'm the negative ion in every atom. I'm the negative thought in every head. I have no space or time. That is where I live. I was like, holy fuck. So I think we're in the third, which I believe like fourth is like heaven, second is hell, and we're in this constant battle. And the only way to elevate to the fourth dimension is to have a light soul. And if you're filled with that negativity, you're gonna sink after death. And I think when we get to the fourth dimension, it's gonna be a whole nother challenge that we can't even comprehend. That's why when people try to figure out like what's the meaning of life, why are we here? I really don't think our brains can even comprehend it, nor will they ever until after death. But if you're a good person, I think you go to the fourth dimension, and then that's a whole nother challenge. And I think the whole goal of life is to elevate through the dimensions with harder and harder challenges to prove yourself until you fuse with God himself.
That's very interesting.
That's just what I think.
I love it. I love that. I love that theory. And I think that the only way to comprehend those types of thoughts, and I'm surprised that you don't meditate, because that's what I think would bring you to have those types of understandings.
Yeah, I need to. I really need to. And I have it on I have a whole schedule back home that I'm going to implement right when I get back. It's similar to yours. Wake up at 6:30, meditate for 20 minutes, because Umar was saying the same thing every morning, meditate for 20 minutes. And then he said, like, if it wasn't for his research into psychology, he wouldn't have 80 to 90% of the success he has right now. He contributes that large of a portion of his success to psychological research.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think that having a knowledge of psychology is one of the most important knowledges you can have. I mean, I've been to a few different Tony Robbins events, UPW, Date with Destiny, and pretty much all of what's taught there is psychology at a level that's really profound. And if you can understand how the human mind works, if you can understand why people feel the way they do, you're able to have conversations without sparking certain emotions that throw things off track. Or you could even understand how you feel and why you feel the way you do. I think that you have a tremendous advantage in life.
Especially when it comes to business, because then you really understand how the customer acts.
Right.
And like trading stocks, of course, it's like you understand the psychological process of price action and all of that.
Right.
So, yeah, that's another thing I need to work on, psychological work. That's the two things I'm leaving here with for sure. Focus on meditation and psychological research.
Bring it back to the basics.
Bring it back to the basics.
Simplify life.
Yeah, bring it back to being a kid. Yeah. Where it's like not having an agenda.
Right. And not having expectations.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because here's the thing, like, your expectations pretty much, you always, first of all, your mind typically expects the worst. In most cases, it always thinks of the bad. And it almost never comes true. And it's almost always better than what you would expect. So letting go of, and sometimes you hold on to expectations. And when things don't go the way that you expect them to go, you start to get resistance, and you stop going on the path that you're supposed to be on, because you're going on the path to get you to what you expect.
That's exactly what he talks about in the book War of Art. He goes, like, a lot of people have a plan and they'll be so blinded by their own plan that they don't see this road that takes them there in like a year opposed to their 10-year plan.
Yeah.
And then that resistance builds up because they're like, this is the plan. I have to do this. I don't care about this. I don't care about this.
Right.
I don't care about this.
You just got to surrender. That's what it comes down to.
Like, even when I was 18, like, I had to like teach my friends this, because they were all like, for example, like if I went to a party, like all my stupid ass friends, they're always like, oh, I got to hook up with a girl. And that's their expectation. So if they don't get that, they're like, that party sucked.
Right.
They have a bad expectation. Every party or anything I went to, my only expectation was to have fun. Have fun. If that happens, fuck yeah. But if I have fun, if my expectation is have fun, all I'm thinking about is having fun. And at the end of the day, I still had fun and I met my expectations.
Right. And that makes you more of an attractive person, and that makes you more magnetic to others.
Because you don't have the agenda. Like, people don't realize that how big of a turnoff in all aspects having an agenda, because people can feel that, especially like really conscious people. They can feel when you have an agenda. I was talking to you about someone who every time they speak to me had an agenda, which pushed me very far away from potentially a pretty good friendship and connection. But and that people in our position, I think we have people come to us with agendas more than most.
Well, yeah, I've been very off the map. I don't really talk to many people in general at this point. It's very rare that I'm talking to like too many new, and if it's someone like, if you're like, hey, I recommend, I want to connect you with this person, I'll definitely talk to them. But if it's just a random person that sends me an email or sends me a DM.
Hey, can you tell me more about dropshipping?
No matter what it is, like if it's a cold outreach, at this point, you know there's an agenda. You know that there's an agenda, and like the odds of that relationship being, beneficial are so slim that it's not really worth exploring. And the other thing is like the cost of taking your attention away from what you're doing to try something else is you're not just wasting your time, you're actually losing because you're not focused on the other things that are more important or the people that you care about more.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my take on it at this point in life.
100%. On the way here, I was listening to Jordan Peterson, like I said, and he always says like, first you got to put a value on every hour of the day. And he's like, for most of you guys here, I would say it's about $50 an hour. I think ours, like I personally rank mine around $1,000 an hour because that's what I like charge. I don't do consultation calls or really mentorship too much, but if I would, that's what I charge. And then he's like, okay, I'll use me for example. Calculate how many hours you waste a day. So say I waste 6 hours a day. Even I can look at my screen time and see how much fucking time I waste on my phone. So say I have 4 hours of screen time a day. Just there alone, let's say I have another 3 hours I waste, 7 hours a day. That's $7,000 a day. $7,000 times 365.
$2.5 million a year.
Damn, you're good at math.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, right around that.
Wow. Would you do math for a fucking living?
No, I know what $1 million a year is. It's like $2,700 a day, I think.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Wow. All right, well, I think we're about 2 hours deep in this right now. This is going to be one of the longest ones, but I think this is going to be one of the best ones for sure.
Hell yeah. We got really deeper than expected.
Yeah.
But I love it. I mean, this was a great conversation.
That's what happens on the Simplified podcast. Your dogs are going crazy to see you right now.
Yeah.
They absolutely are.
We got to unleash the hounds.
Well, is there anything you want the people to know before we close this up?
Really just, if you listen this far, you're probably a special person. And
if you're listening this far, comment 2 hour gang in the comments below.
Yeah. And let's hear your thoughts about the topics we talked about simplifying, about surrendering, about not having an agenda, about not having expectations. And let's hear your experiences when you finally implement that into your life.
Mm-hmm. And what's your podcast going to be called when you launch it?
The Modern Soul.
The Modern Soul. I can see it now.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, Jared, thank you so much for this podcast.
Yeah, bro.
Signing off from Boca Raton.
Oh, good work.